Don't miss the awesome Naruto stories my sister creates. Her last channel was hacked, so to stay in the loop, please subscribe to her new channel. It would mean a lot to her, and you won't regret it. Hello to all lovers of lemon scenes. I invite you all to my boosty so you can watch your favorite Naruto What If stories in complete comfort. A subscription to Naruto Lemon, the first video with a full lemon, is already on my boosty channel. Dare! Naruto stood next to Madara, opposite Hashirama and Tobirama. Now two historical events are happening at once, the conclusion of an alliance with the Senju clan and the founding of the first Gakurasado in the world. Both heirs of the Senju clan are clearly pleased with what is happening. Hashirama smiles openly and widely, and his younger brother stands with a stony face, only slightly raising the corners of his lips. However, Naruto had long ago learned to read people's emotions at a sufficient level to see that Tobirama was also bursting with positive emotions. Oh, this is certainly a great moment, and Naruto, along with the Senju clan, most of the Uchiha clan and many outside observers should be happy about this, but, in front of her she saw the shinobi who suddenly abandoned her and almost 300 of his followers. Madara stood next to him with an impenetrable face and, it seemed, exactly the same thoughts. Kurama was also silent, supporting his Jinchuriki, with whom he had become good friends over the 10 years spent in this world. Here, as it seemed to the Biju, everything was the other way around. The Senju clan was somehow rotten. The local Madara did not at all cause disgust or anything like that. He was accepted by the fox, like the late Izuna, as part of the blonde's family. Almost the entire time the agreement was concluded and the subsequent celebration, the woman stroked a pair of combat tessen, presented by Izuna for her and Naruto's wedding. Occasionally the blonde touched the ends of her hair, which now barely reached her earlobes. But just 2 months ago, her beloved Izuna stroked his wife's almost 1.5-meter braid and once again admired the softness and beauty of the hair. Madara saw the condition of the named younger sister and tried with all his might to support her. Not only on this historic day, but always. Naruto gratefully accepted the care of the head of the Uchiha clan and spoke only with him and Kurama. Of course, members of the Uchiha clan tried to support the widow, with whom almost the entire clan was on fairly good terms, but the blonde only responded with a sad smile and nods. The woman continued to play with the younger generation, for which almost all the women of the clan, led by Madara's cousin, Hikari, were grateful to her, carry out missions, though now mostly protracted ones, create seals that she had already mastered here, and heal some members of the clan. However, usually it was Madara and Hikari, so from the outside it might seem that Naruto was a typical member of the Uchiha clan, reserved, silent, strong. Naruto herself seemed to remain aloof from life, which became very active after the conclusion of the agreement with the Senju. Only occasionally, when Madara came to her in the evenings, did the scales seem to be lifted from her eyes. The world again became clear and contrasting. The woman even sometimes sincerely smiled at her named brother. But Madara himself saw that his brother's widow was wasting away, fading away without her loved one. The man saw how the blonde runs away from any reminder of Izuna. She refused to implant the Sharingan, which her husband bequeathed to her, and, having put her named brother to sleep, implanted Izuna's eyes into Madara, cut off her long braid, which Izuna admired all the time, removed many joint photographs from the shelves in basement, leaving only one photo on the cabinet in the living room, stopped talking and laughing. The head of the Uchiha clan was glad that the blonde at least didn't throw out the photos and didn't stop using the fans she'd given her. On the contrary, the woman trained with them all the time, spending hours looking at the black and white dragons depicted on the blue fabric of the fans. One day, Madara even caught Naruto looking into space and opening and closing her fan with mechanical movements. Every day the blonde became more and more distant from life, remaining on the sidelines even at the most important events. She remained on the sidelines at the wedding of the head of the Senju clan, and at the first meeting of the clans of the newly founded Konohagakure, and at Hashirama Senju's birthday. And even at numerous receptions and friendly visits. Hashirama's wife, Mito, looked at the woman broken by loss with coldness and some kind of contempt, although she was polite. In the end, Naruto surrounded her home, which turned out to be on the very outskirts of Konoha, with almost a dozen different barriers, personally developed by her. The woman no longer appeared on the territory of the Uchiha clan, only occasionally coming to Hikari to give several seals for sale. The blonde appeared a couple of times at clan meetings. Even in Konoha itself, she didn't just walk around, she just went out, bought some groceries and locked herself back in her house. The woman took on missions only a couple of times, and each one was for elimination. Among the civilians who were just arriving in the newly formed village, a legend quickly spread that a ghost lived in a house on the outskirts, sometimes going out to Konoha for shopping, but in fact choosing a victim for his bloody pastimes. Therefore, when one day he saw Naruto leaving this very house, some guy instantly made the blonde a ghost from city tales. And very soon they began to shy away from her. The woman, who was accustomed to this in a past life, before she was 13 years old and ended up at this time, only looked with longing and pain at the frightened children and tense adults. But Naruto did not want to remain on the sidelines when choosing the first Hokage. The woman quietly but stubbornly insisted on the candidacy of her adopted brother. At one of the meetings, the blonde even gave a long speech, which amazed the heads of the clans and Hashirama in particular. However, she was left aside. Madara then said that he was going on a mission and would be gone for a while. And Naruto, who was used to believing him, not looking for lies in the words of the head of the Uchiha clan, believed him. All the time that Madara was gone, Naruto was worried. She knew that the head of the Uchiha clan was very strong, one of the strongest in the world, but there were other clans, other shinobi who could be no less strong. Kurama calmed his Jinchuriki as best he could, distracted her with stories about his past, about various comical situations. Rikudo, other Bijou, remembered and talked about the woman's parents, mostly, however, talking about his mother. Then Naruto, following the advice of a friend in the person of a Bijou, tried to distract herself by sparring with random ninjas. And this seemed like a sensible idea to her. Having quickly dressed and secured the covers with Tessin on her hands, the blonde, almost smiling, jumped out of the house and quickly walked towards the training grounds, recently created, but already in full use. The first few shinobi did not take the woman seriously and clearly pitted her. Then there were several self-confident weaklings whom the blonde defeated without even using her favorite shadow clones. After a couple of good sparring sessions, the opponents ended abruptly. Everyone was afraid to spar with Naruto. The blonde left the training ground amid whispers like, "I saw Uchiha Madara himself visiting her house. No wonder she is so strong. My Uchiha friend once told me that this Naruto is the wife of Madara's dead brother, and I heard that she is Madara's mistress." 3 days after Madara left, wounded, in torn, dirty clothes and accompanied by his wife, Hashirama entered the main gate of Konoha. Naruto, like all the residents who came out to look at the wounded god of the shinobi world, heard Mito announce, Hashirama Senju defeated Madara Uchiha in mortal combat and thereby won the post of first Hokage. The blonde's heart sank somewhere down. How so? Well, Madara couldn't lose to Hashirama, they are equal in strength. Naruto woke up in the middle of the night a week after the god of shinobi world officially became the ruler of the world's first shinobi village. Mito. Of course, she came with her husband. So she helped him in the battle. And Kurama also said that he now feels like the former Uzumaki's chakra has now become half red. That is, Madara fought against 2 strong opponents at once? But this is not fair. Taking a deep breath, Naruto walked into the living room. She sank heavily onto the sofa. The woman looked around the cozy room with an empty gaze. Perfectly clean. As always, from the moment she met Izuna, he was allergic to dust. The gaze lingered on the photograph, where the then still alive Madara and Izuna, and Naruto with them, were smiling joyfully. Then the future husband and wife show the V sign, and Madara pats both of their heads. A weak but sincere smile illuminates the woman's pale lips for a moment. Tesson blades flashed in the silvery moonlight. A moment and... No, you can't do it here. Izu hated dirt. For some reason she said out loud. Kurama snored especially loudly in his subconscious and continued to sleep. Rising abruptly from the sofa, Naruto quickly walked towards the bathroom. She quickly made the seals and the bath filled with water. Water jet technique, C-rank elemental ninjutsu. And it's only her, Naruto's trick to use the basic Suetun technique for everyday purposes. The night yukata falls at the feet, followed by a thin obi belt. Quietly and silently, the blonde plunges into the water. The blades flashed again in the darkness. I'm on my way, Izu, a quiet whisper broke the perfect silence. The last time a voice was heard in this house. Blood spattered the patterned tiles and water. Naruto was glad when her eyelids grew heavy and closed. The very fact of her death was something unusual, almost joyful. Naturally, because soon she will get to the pure world, to her beloved Izuna. But then the body goes numb, the fingers weaken and unclench, letting go of the battle fans, allowing them to fall on the tile with a characteristic loud sound, and lightness comes. I don't want anything, just to be close to my loved one as soon as possible. When the light shines through her drooping eyelids, the blonde's eyes widen. And immediately a sensation of the whole body appears, and it is very painful. The world, previously quiet, is suddenly filled with sounds. Somewhere something is beeping, rustling, knocking. How? Really, they saved you? The blonde thinks disappointedly. Uzumaki, damn it. Why are you so scared? A vaguely familiar child's voice yelled nearby. Trying to remember who it was, Naruto didn't even notice that she was called by her maiden name. Kurama? Do you remember who it is? Well, who is your favorite teammate from the present time? Well, this one. With pink hair. Sakura? A sudden guess, like a flash, illuminates my thoughts. And almost forgotten names, voices, people literally flood the blonde's consciousness. What's happened? How is this, what? An earthquake happened, that's what. Your dormitory turned into ruins, they barely dug you out. The pink-haired girl grumbled. Convulsively, Naruto began to remember everything that was connected with her team, Konoha, in which she was born. As luck would have it, I only remember useless screams and Sakura's offensive phrase, "You are ballast, Uzumaki. Just don't interfere with Sasuke-kun and me." But in the land of waves, this same ballast saved her beloved Sasuke-kun. Clear. Naruto took a sitting position. How long did I lie unconscious? The girl asked quietly. Almost a week. Sakura responded dissatisfied. Yesterday Kakashi-sensei said that he recommended us for Chunin Shuriken. If you hadn't woken up before tonight, we wouldn't have been able to participate. And that's why you decided to be on duty in the ward? Naruto guessed. The girl nodded reluctantly. Here. This must be filled out and brought to room 301 at the academy by noon tomorrow. Naruto just nodded weakly, receiving the form in her hands. Now get up, we're going to sign you out to go to the exam tomorrow. Apparently, Haruno Sakura didn't even think about the fact that her teammate might not feel well. Naruto, who had lost the habit of speaking much for almost 2 years, silently allowed herself to be dragged to the first floor, to the register. The woman, who had suddenly become a girl again, had not yet fully realized her disappointment. The nurse at the reception did not particularly resist when Sakura said that Uzumaki Naruto was already feeling well and should be discharged. For the sake of form, the woman said that Naruto, who had just woken up, still needed bed rest, and such an unceremonious pulling out of the girl from the hospital could have a bad effect on her health. But can you convince Sakura? And the nurse, noticeably, was not particularly eager to leave the demon in the hospital. When Naruto got her clothes back and changed, the girl managed to notice that the bright orange suit of a jacket and skirt began to irritate her. Sakura dragged the blonde somewhere. While the girl was frantically thinking and remembering the map of modern Konoha, the main fan of Uchiha Sasuke led the blonde by the hand onto a wide street and dragged her teammate along it to a huge white building. 3 unknown men of different ages walked towards the girls. Walking ahead was a boy about the same age as Sakura and Naruto's current age. Behind his back was a huge vessel, plugged with a stopper, and a hedgehog of red hair adorned his head. A little behind him walked a blonde girl with 4 short ponytails and a huge fan behind her back. Next to the girl walked a guy in a black suit and with a painted face. The red-haired man stopped a meter from Sakura and Naruto and, looking at the latter, demanded, "Name." "Yuke." The blonde stopped in time. "Uzumaki Naruto. I want to fight with you." And the whole trio moved on. Sakura, a little hung up from such impudence, was about to burst into a tirade about bad manners, but she was cut off by Naruto. "Where are you taking me, Sakura-chan?" The blonde asked very quietly, which was completely at odds with Naruto's noisy and restless behavior. But, nevertheless, the girl dragged the blonde towards the white building. Already at the very building, Naruto remembered that this was the residence of the Hokage. Sakura, telling the girl to go to the office, turned around abruptly and, saying goodbye, "If you settle the issues, come to the 8th training ground," she quickly walked away. Naruto went to the secretary to ask permission to visit the Hokage. At first, the stubborn woman did not want to let the girl see the ruler, but in the end she gave in under quiet, and therefore unusual, pressure from Naruto. Entering the office, Naruto bowed mechanically. "You called, Hokage-sama?" the blonde asked in a quiet, colorless voice. The third looked up in surprise at the girl who, less than 2 weeks ago, burst into this office and in a raised voice, calling him old man, declared that she and her team had completed a rank C mission. There was no trace of any observance of the rules of decency, much less subordination. What happened in just a week of coma to the most unpredictable, mischievous and noisy kunoichi of Konoha? "Yes, Naruto, I called. You should have been notified that the dorm where you lived was destroyed. And I called you in order to resolve the issue of your residence. Until the new dormitory is built, you could live. Hokage-sama, on the outskirts of Konoha, not far from the Uchiha clan quarter, there is an abandoned house. I want to live there," Naruto said firmly, but still emotionlessly and quietly. The strongest shinobi of Konohagakure was surprised. Even when he was little, older children scared the younger ones with scary stories about a bloodthirsty ghost living in this very house. Hiruzen personally heard many rumors of varying degrees of stupidity, about the fact that Uchiha Madara became so strong only thanks to a contract with this ghost, and about the fact that the founders of Konoha made a bloody sacrifice to the gods in this building, and now the unrest soul of the unfortunate woman wanders around the village, wanting revenge, and about the fact that the widow of Madara's deceased younger brother lived in the house. Tobirama even once mentioned to Hiruzen that the last rumor was true, but the third himself did not believe it. "Fine," the Hokage answered in a slightly surprised voice. "Come in the evening, you will receive documents for housing and money." "Thank you, Hokage-sama." The girl bowed again. "Goodbye." And the door silently closed behind Naruto. On the way to the building, the blonde thought intensely. What happened to the house? Did the living burial barrier work? No, it definitely worked. There simply could not be a mistake in the calculations. Naruto, then still a woman, checked them many times and was even able to conduct a test. Everything worked, which means that in reality everything should work. But will the creation allow the creator in a young body? Approaching the border of the barrier, visible to the girl in the form of a whitish dome. The owner of the building bit her finger and, having made the necessary seals, waited until the barrier verified the identity of the guest, after which she boldly took a step into the protected territory. The wooden house, a small training ground behind it and a garden with a vegetable garden greeted the owner, who had been absent for more than half a century, with perfect silence. The old door creaked slightly when the blonde opened it. The perfect purity that Naruto left behind has not gone away. So the barrier worked. With a sinking heart, the girl headed to the bathroom. Opening the door, the blonde involuntarily closed her eyes. Still, she committed suicide there. Finding herself in the bathroom and holding the door just in case, Naruto took a deep breath and exhaled slowly, after which she finally opened her eyes. There were drops of blood on the floor and wall, kept fresh by the barrier, and abandoned fans lay on the floor. The bath was filled with lukewarm water, but the most important thing was missing. There was no corpse. It made me happy and scared at the same time. The first thing Naruto did was wipe off the blood and flush the bath. Next, the blonde went into a room with a closet that served as a bedroom. The girl still remembered her surprise when she found this house. And what a surprise it was when a closet was discovered in the house, filled to capacity with all kinds of kimonos with all kinds of fox designs. What's strange is that any clothing, except for underwear and some wardrobe items, such as leggings or chakra-conducting mesh, purchased or simply brought here, disappeared without a trace. Although Izuna's clothes never went missing. With sadness, the girl examined the kimono she had picked up in the bathroom. A light peach yukata with a red outline of a stylized image of a curled-up fox on the back. And on the inside of the collar is sewn a small symbol of the Uchiha clan. Unfortunately, the sleeping kimono was irrevocably ruined by several awkward elongated drops of blood. Sighing, Naruto opened the closet. A large wooden piece of furniture stood out sharply from the rest of the interior. In contrast to the simple furniture that filled the house, the wardrobe had an ochre tint, carved handles and legs, and on the inside of the right door there was a large, full-length mirror. The girl pulled out a short dark blue sleeveless kimono with the same symbol embroidered on the back with gold threads as on the yukata. Just like when she got dressed for training with Madara and Hashirama, Naruto pulled black leggings over her legs, not wanting to make any tricks now and come up with something permanent, as is customary now. Earlier, in the time of the founders, you could wear whatever you liked, and it was considered normal. Now for some reason everyone tried to dress in the same thing all the time. The girl tied the protector on blue fabric around her neck, and secured the covers for her carefully cleaned fans on her forearms. She hung a holster with kunai on her right hip, and for some reason decided not to take pouches with shurikens. Although kunai are needed purely for show, the girl used her tessen both at close and long distances. Hair. Naruto looked in the mirror, checking the presence of roosters in her hair, the neatness of her clothes and her appearance in general. She involuntarily remembered how, after meeting Izuna, she looked at herself in the mirror and realized she was ugly. Unlike any girl from the Uchiha clan, or any recognized beauty from those who always hovered around the Uchiha brothers, Naruto was and is a dark blonde with either birthmarks or scars on her cheeks, and even blue eyes, tall and sharp facial features. Imagine the girl's surprise when Uchiha Izuna, one of the strongest shinobi of his clan, incredibly popular among girls and women, blushing and stammering, confessed his feelings. Shaking her head to clear away the intrusive memories, Naruto left the house, reactivating all the protective and security barriers except for the living burial. I had to strain my memory a lot to remember how to get to the desired training ground. The meeting place turned out to be an old, half-abandoned training ground at the opposite end of the village. When Naruto arrived there, she found the whole team there, even Kakashi. From afar, the girl saw how the pink-haired girl was pestering the brunette. As she came closer, the girl received a contemptuous look from the only boy genin on the team. In principle, He was the only one of the entire trio in the clearing who even paid attention to the newcomer. "Hello, Naruto-chan." The ash-haired one made an eye smile as soon as the blonde herself announced her presence by saying hello. "How are you feeling?" "Okay, Kakashi-sensei, thanks for your concern." Naruto answered completely calmly. The whole team stared at her in surprise. "Is there something wrong?" "It's okay, Naruto-chan. You're just acting a little unusual." The team coach smiled again, to which the girl shrugged. "You can check, sensei, it's me." Kakashi, clearly suspecting something, lifted the bandage from his Sharingan. The man stared at the girl for a couple of seconds, after which his eyes widened in surprise and his eyebrows went up. Seeing such a reaction from the sensei, Naruto tensed a little, Sakura became wary, and Sasuke, frowning, also activated his Sharingan. Even the second stage of dojutsu was enough for the boy to understand that in front of them was Naruto, but somehow, different. The circulation system developed sharply, the amount of chakra increased greatly, and the chakra itself moved differently. Unlike the former Naruto, whose chakra was almost seething and constantly moving very actively, the present Naruto had blue energy barely moving, as if the blonde was half asleep. "What happened, Kakashi-sensei? Is there something wrong with Uzumaki's Kirakue?" Sakura was worried. How strange. "Well, nothing bad or irreparable happened, so we can start training," Kakashi said, pulling the protector back over his eye. The Jonin pulled out several pieces of tissue paper from his vest pocket and handed them out to the children. "Now we will determine your element. To do this, hold the paper between your thumb and forefinger and apply chakra." Sasuke-kun may not do this, since he knows his basic element. Sakura quickly followed her mentor's instructions, and her piece of paper got wet. "Great, Sakura-chan, your main element is Suiton, water." "Naruto-chan, why don't you recognize your element?" "This is very important, because most techniques are spontaneous." "I don't need to do this." The girl shrugged. "My elements are Futon, Katon and Suiton. Futon is the main element, Katon and Suiton are secondary, developed slightly less than the main element." Unexpectedly. "Okay. Sasuke-kun, Sakura-chan, we will determine your second element, if you have one. To find out, you need to take these pieces of paper." The man pulled out two bluish square pieces of paper from another pocket, and hold them between your middle and index fingers, and then apply chakra to them. Sasuke and Sakura obediently followed the Jonin's instructions. The brunette's square crumpled, while Sakura's square crumbled into dust. Naruto chuckled. "Congratulations, Sasuke-kun, you have Raiton, lightning. Sakura-chan, you have Doton, earth. Let's start training the elements." Kakashi-sensei, Uzumaki named 3 elements. Well, this also happens, Sakura-chan. Some shinobi have an affinity with 3, even 4, elements. But this happens extremely rarely. Now let's start the training. To do this, Sakura-chan, you should take a piece of cloth and try to wet it with chakra. You, Sasuke-kun, already know how to use your main element, so your training will be a little more difficult. You need to create an electrical discharge between your palms. The closer your hands are, the easier it is. Naruto-chan. I already know how. The girl responded. With all 3 elements. Well, then, the surprised mentor took on a conspiratorial look. Do you know at least one technique of at least your main element? The main one, not so much. There are only 3, gust of wind, cutting currents and following draft. I use Suiton and Katon more. I often use Futon to enhance fire and water techniques. The girl reported. I already know how to pass elemental chakra through weapons. Just in case, the blonde added. Why such a sharp jump in techniques, Uzumaki? Sakura commented sarcastically. Sasuke was clearly encouraged by the fact that he knew more techniques of his main element than Naruto. I wouldn't be so happy, Sasuke-kun. Futon masters are quite difficult to find in Konoha. This is a very rare element for our area, which is usually transmitted hereditarily, like Kekkei Genkai. Kakashi lowered his student, making an eye smile. Kurama muttered something in his subconscious about subtle hints of thick circumstances. Half an hour later, Sakura began training the simplest Suiton technique, water jet. So far it's been bad. Instead of a full-fledged stream, a weak stream was obtained. Sasuke was still struggling with the electricity between his palms. Naruto tried to create not just boiling water or a cold stream, but full-fledged hot steam or ice. So far it's worked out, no way. That is, the result was a stream of boiling water, or a stream of spring stream, a cold stream of water with small pieces of ice. At some point, Sakura stopped training and lay down on the grass at the edge of the training ground, a couple of meters from her teammates. Sakura-chan, why did you stop training? Asked the mentor. I'm out of chakra. I can share. Naruto suddenly said. 3 pairs of eyes immediately stared at her. What? I have a lot of chakra, and it is dense. I may well share some of it for practice. And, without asking permission, she approached Sakura, who didn't mind. The pink-haired girl immediately took a sitting position. The blonde sighed and placed one hand on her teammate's shoulder. As soon as the girl began to supply chakra, Sakura squealed and jumped away from her. Holding her hand on the shoulder that Naruto was touching, the pink-haired girl, almost crying, asked. For what? The blonde looked at her hands in surprise, not understanding why ordinary chakra affected the girl so aggressively. What did you think? Suicide doesn't just go away. Kurama responded from his subconscious. He had already stopped sulking at his unlucky Jinchuriki for suicide, but he did not stop scolding him at every opportunity, of which there were 2 so far, including the incident with chakra. Your chakra is just a monster now, although I believe you can still use Iriajitsu. This has never happened before. She said, a little surprised. Take your hand away from your shoulder. If there's a burn there, you'll only make it worse. Sakura just shook her head. Take it away, let me see. I'll just take a look. Naruto promised. Frowning even deeper, the pink-haired girl finally removed her hand. Blisters had already formed where the blonde's hand touched the skin. The girls didn't even notice that Sasuke stopped training, watching what was happening, and the sensei muttered something like, well, that's what I expected. Naruto didn't like the fact that her chakra could easily kill her now. No, in certain situations this is very good, but what if one of her comrades runs out of chakra during a battle? I'll lie down. The girl quietly suggested. No. You'll make it even worse. Sakura squealed, jumping away from her teammate. Listen, Sakura, Iriajitsu uses a special processed chakra, which simply cannot be aggressive. I know this, but I don't believe you, don't touch me. Naruto's face took on a strange expression, which she hastened to hide by lowering her head so that her bangs fell over her face and hid it. It was very disappointing to realize that this time the fear towards Naruto was well-founded. I wanted to run away from this aura of fear that came from the girl who had recently bullied the blonde. Having said something about the fact that she still needed to settle down at her new place of residence, Naruto quickly walked away. Looking after her, Kakashi shook his head and said. You shouldn't be doing that, Sakura-chan. It's not Naruto's fault. But she almost killed me. Naruto-chan's chakra has never been so aggressive before. It's hard to get used to it on the first day. The ash-haired man made an eye smile. Sasuke looked at the blonde with a frown. Such drastic changes in the abilities and behavior of his recently weak and essentially mediocre partner were alarming. What could happen during a week of coma? Naruto, as soon as she got home, immediately burst into her bedroom to change clothes. For some reason, it felt like the clothes suddenly became very dirty. The hairstyle became too tight and pulled the skin unpleasantly. The strap holding the pouch to my hip had become too rough, and the bandages underneath were rubbing against my skin. Instantly Naruto undressed, let down her hair and took off her equipment, even her tights. The kimonos and leggings went into the dirty laundry, the cases with the fans were neatly placed on the nightstand, the pouch with the kunai was quietly thrown away somewhere in the closet drawer. They were replaced by a short light yellow, almost white, kimono with wide three-quarter sleeves, bright orange foxes depicted running from the edge somewhere to the collar, a narrow dark brown obi belt and shorts of the same color, barely peeking out from under the kimono. The hair, except for the bangs, was tied back with a thin black headband. Taking a wallet with money, even in the first days of her stay in the past, Naruto noted that the currency and prices have not changed since then, and fastening the straps of the cases with tessen on her forearms, the blonde quickly left the room and went out into the corridor, after which she entered the living room, from where she had already entered the hallway. For a moment, the thought flashed through my head that it wouldn't hurt to return at least some of the photographs to the interior, since the only reminder of Izuna were the fans that were given to her. It used to be his brother, the head of the Senju clan, and his younger brother, the Uchiha clan, after all, who reminded him of his beloved husband. And here, except for the strange similarity between Sasuke and Izuna and the tessen. Quickly putting on the zori. And after checking the condition of the barriers just in case, Naruto left the house. Now I wanted something. Deciding not to dwell on it for now, Naruto did something she hadn't done since Izuna's death. She simply took a walk, walking thoughtfully through the park. The blonde wondered for the first time, why did Mito hate her? Ho ho. It's ripe. I thought you'd never be interested. Kurama woke up. He probably knows why his first Jinchuriki despised the widow of Uchiha Izuna. Yeah, I know. Of course, this is very interesting and valuable information, but, so be it, I'm in a very good mood today, so I'll share it with you. Senju Mito, née Uzumaki, hated Uchiha Uzumaki Naruto because she was broken by the loss of a person and did not even try to hide it. Naruto, against her will, made a strange face, which could be interpreted as, what kind of idiocy? Somewhere in the depths of his subconscious, Kurama agreed. Naruto turned around sharply and walked towards the equipment store. Without stopping, she walked past Ichiraku, which seemed to shock the owner of the establishment and everyone nearby. Over the years of living during the time of the founders, the blonde learned to do without ramen, even managed to lose interest in this dish, but she incredibly fell in love with peaches and strawberries. The first thing Naruto did was take more special paper, it's easier to create seals on it. Next, several brushes of different thicknesses, ink and 3 thick notebooks were purchased, to which, paying tribute to the habit and the times from which this habit originated, the girl purchased 1 thin brush and an additional jar of ink, this time dark burgundy. Naruto then walked into the shoe department. The girl walked past the stand with standard sandals, the cheapest shoes, without stopping. She stood in front of a stand with various sandals, examining them, and then headed towards the boots. I guess you've already thought of some style of your own, right? Naruto mentally agreed. She already definitely knew how she was going to dress. Well, then I don't dare interfere, just as you don't dare interfere with my sleep. This meant that there would be a lot of interference. And why? And all because Naruto, even when she was not so calm, simply adored visiting the subconscious and waking up the 9-tailed bijou in the most sophisticated ways. She again looked thoughtfully at the neatly arranged pairs of shoes. Having finally chosen the ones she needed, the blonde called the consultant and asked her to bring her the right size boots. The girl, clearly a civilian, her yellowish face with several purulent pimples clearly indicated this, grimaced slightly, muttered something, but obediently went to get a pair of boots of the right size. When Naruto put on her boots to try on, she walked in them along the shoe department and went to the mirror. From there, a girl with a blank look and golden hair looked at her, dressed exactly the same as when she started the walk, only now, instead of dark Zori, her legs, almost up to the middle of her thighs, were hidden under the thin black fabric of boots made of chakra-conducting material. Open socks and a cutout at the ankle joint, of course, upset the girl a little. After all, if you have to go on a mission to the land of wind, for example, where almost everything is covered with sand, then small pebbles and the same thing will easily and quickly get into the open areas of the shoe's sand. Naruto also looked closely at various light armor, from elbow and knee pads, which play a more decorative role, to real armor plates, similar to those that ANBU use in their equipment. As a result, the choice was made on thin but dense gloves of light gray color up to the elbows and without fingers. The blonde also, purely out of curiosity, looked at the proposed weapon. Here, in the general store, his choice was minimal, because for the purchase of something serious and, so to speak, original, like swords, nodachi, chakrams and tessen, there are weapons shops. Therefore, Naruto limited herself to one kunai. She would not need more. The cashier, seeing a mountain of purchases dumped in front of him, somehow grinned venomously and asked, "How are you going to pay, demon?" He apparently still remembered how the blonde rarely came to the store, and then only to buy new sandals to replace the old ones that had completely fallen apart, and she took the cheapest ones. But when Naruto chuckled and placed a couple of large bills and a few coins in front of the cashier to pay, the grin fell from his face. Satisfied with her purchases, the blonde left the store clearly in a better mood than when she arrived. Kurama muttered something about, "I forgot to say, that boy is Shikaku," birds sang around her, and even sideways glances of hatred and contempt could not spoil the girl's sharply elevated mood. Having brought her purchases home, Naruto calmly went to the Hokage residence to receive documents for housing and moral compensation for the destroyed dormitory. And in the residence itself, the third Hokage and half of his ANBU squad were scratching their heads in unison. The last owner of the house where the Jinchuriki settled, even before the founding of Konoha, was Uchiha Uzumaki Naruto, the widow of Uchiha Izuna and one of the strongest jonin of early Konoha, whose dossier was attached to the documents home, and whose photograph was almost exactly the same as that of Uzumaki Naruto, a restless and weak orphan. In Japan, a beauty is traditionally considered to be a short girl with fair skin without scars or birthmarks, black hair, dark eyes, and smooth facial features. In the fanfic, the height of an adult Naruto is approximately 170 centimeters. For comparison, adult Sakura's height is 160 centimeters, and Izuna's height is 175. Zori is a type of traditional Japanese women's shoes. Zori are considered very luxurious, so wearing them in everyday life can serve as a sign of good wealth, if not prosperity. Here I'm guessing that shops, especially those selling shinobi goods, might be staffed by retired ninjas. For example, those who have received any injuries. As for the face, among kunoichi, and among men too, there are no ugly ones. Inconspicuous, ordinary, yes; ugly, disabled, no. I believe this is because the chakra focus simply does not allow the child to look like that. Naruto woke up at 6 in the morning, as she had done since the second month of meeting Madara, that is, almost from the moment she got into the past. The academy is just a stone's throw from home. You can run across the rooftops in 10 minutes, so there's still plenty of time. Dressed as usual in a simple green yukata, braiding her hair in a low ponytail and wearing simple old Niwa Geta shoes, Naruto went out into the backyard to check the garden and vegetable garden, which she had not done yesterday. As soon as the girl found herself outside, the thought flashed through her head that plants standing unchanged all year round should look strange and arouse suspicion, but this thought quickly faded away. Here, after all, an evil and terrible spirit or ghost lives. So a few oddities are quite normal for this house. It's strange that all the time travel happened around the same time. Naruto found herself in the past around the beginning of June and committed suicide, that is, she returned to the present, she too, at the beginning of June. So the cherry, peach, apple trees, bushes with raspberries and black mulberries and so carefully planted strawberries were now developing how to. The mulberry berries have already acquired a red tint, some have even become burgundy, the cherries have already turned red in some places, and the raspberries are not far behind, acquiring a rich hue. Even the vegetables that Naruto didn't like, but for some reason still continued to grow, grew quite normally. Watering and weeding took about 2 hours in total. Next, the shadow clone, whom the blonde suddenly remembered, was in charge. The mistress of the house herself went inside the room to prepare breakfast. Already when the scrambled eggs were eaten, the thought suddenly flew into my head that Naruto had not filled out the participation form. Jumping up from her seat, the girl almost teleported to her room, grabbed the form, pen and ink and began to read. Floor. First name, last name. Improved genome, if any. Age. Team number. Quickly filling out the columns one after another, the blonde quietly approached the bold inscription, studied techniques. Then the classes were indicated in smaller font, Kenjutsu, Genjutsu, Ninjutsu, Fuinjutsu, Taijutsu. And what should I write? No, in the Taijutsu column you can simply write Konoha Taijutsu, in Kenjutsu you can honestly write Tessen, and in Genjutsu you can put a dash, but what to do with the rest of the columns? More than half of the techniques from Naruto's arsenal are now probably long forgotten, and in the entire shinobi world there are only a few people who know these techniques. As a result, in the ninjutsu column the simplest techniques of katan, suiton and futon were indicated, which hardly qualify for rank C, except for futon. There are 2 techniques of rank B and 1A, basic techniques and shadow clone, and in Fuinjutsu, 3 basic techniques were indicated, such as sealing in a scroll, and several not very difficult barriers, personally developed by her and described in her diaries. Neither the elders, whom Naruto had not trusted since childhood, nor the Hokage, who was a student of Senju Tobirama, needed to know more. Besides, information could easily be leaked, stolen, sold to other participants, in the end. The remaining time, 2¼ hours, had to do something. Almost without thinking, Naruto created a shadow clone and sent for the kunai she bought yesterday. No, the blonde was not going to make a second attempt to reunite with her husband, she had a better idea. While the clone was going for the kunai, the original quickly made several shadow clones in the form of paper and spread them on the floor, placed a stool on top and sat down on it. The clone returned with a comb and the already mentioned weapon. And the first strands flew onto the shadow papers. When the haircut was finished, my head suddenly became very light. The clone stayed behind to clean up while Naruto went into the bedroom to look at herself with her new haircut. When the closet door, creaking almost inaudibly, showed the girl her reflection, she involuntarily froze for a second. Now the hair was very short, a little longer than after Izuna's death, but the 2 side strands still remained intact. Naruto, as if in a dream, raised her hands to her head and touched the roots of the long strands with her fingers and released medical chakra through them. The strands immediately began to move, evenly and not very quickly, 2 curls began to lengthen. The blonde stopped pumping chakra into her fingers when the strands reached her hips. At 11:30 the girl began to get ready for the exam. Instead of her home yukata, she put on the kimono she wore for a walk yesterday, the same shorts and new gloves. Long curls were braided and secured with almost invisible black elastic bands. Naruto secured sheaths with tessen on her forearms. Just in case, the girl put spatial pockets on her gloves and sealed ink with a brush and chakra-conducting paper in them. After thinking a little, the blonde also sealed several apples and tonic pills. They taste like crap, but if something happens, they will saturate the body with the necessary substances and dull hunger for the next 5 to 6 hours. And besides, Naruto can't even imagine what Chunin Shuriken will be like this, so everything is fine. Nodding to her thoughts, the blonde put on new boots, went out and, closing the door behind her and activating the barriers around the house, headed towards the ridge of roofs, along which she reached the academy in a matter of minutes. At the entrance, the girl met Sakura and Sasuke, who seemed to be waiting for her. "Hi guys." The blonde nodded in greeting. Sakura openly stared at her partner's new haircut, without even answering the greeting. Sasuke, on the other hand, looked surprised only for the first couple of seconds, after which he again assumed a self-confident and proud look and, grunting, silently walked inside the building. The whole trio began to rise to the desired audience. On the second floor, near one of the doors, genin of different ages crowded together, trying to get inside, and they were driven away by two boys about the same age as Sasuke and Sakura. When the seventh team appeared on the floor, one of them had just knocked back some boy in green with one blow. For a second, Sasuke and Sakura slowed down, but Naruto subtly pulled both of them by the hands, demanding that they follow her. Walking past the door and the crowd of disgruntled children and teenagers, the blonde made a seal and muttered, "Kai." The genjutsu instantly flew off the 301 sign, turning it into 201. The trio of genin continued on their way to the third floor. Between the floors, the children were overtaken by the same boy in green overalls. "You're Haruno Sakura-chan, right? I am Rock Lee. Be my girl, I will protect you for the rest of my life." Rock Lee yelled. "No." Sakura answered sharply, starting to dodge the hearts being thrown at her. The boy in green was noticeably depressed, but not for long. Just seeing the only boy in the seventh team, Rock Lee was immediately filled with the enthusiasm he had lost a second ago. "Are you Uchiha Sasuke-kun? Let's fight. I want to test what my taijutsu can do against your Sharingan." Smiling, apparently already anticipating another triumphant victory over his opponent, the brunette nodded in response. Naruto frowned. Just like that, no idiot would interfere with an Uchiha, even if he was the last and not even fully trained, but already possessed an awakened Sharingan. Or has everything changed so much in 70 years? However, the blonde, taking her partner by the hand, moved towards the wall so as not to disturb those sparring. The fight, although, more likely, a beating, did not last long and was interrupted by a huge turtle, on which stood an exact copy of Rock Lee, only 10 to 15 years older. First the man scolded his student, then for some reason they burst into tears. The girls, supporting their beaten partner, finally hurried to the third floor. While they were rising, Naruto used the mystic hand technique as discreetly as possible to heal her partner's injuries, so the guys approached the 301st audience separately. Their mentor met them at the door. Making an ice smile, the man said, "I'm glad you all came, because otherwise you wouldn't have been allowed to take the exam. Although, Naruto-chan, you should take care of your health." The sensei looked reproachfully at his ward, after which he walked away from the door and, wishing good luck, disappeared. As soon as the genin were in the right audience, almost 70 pairs of eyes stared at them. Some looked studyingly, some with hatred, there were those who looked with superiority, and some, like the trio from Suna, did not pay any attention to those who came. Before the guys had time to move away from the door, something purple with a light yellow top rushed at the only boy in the team. Already when the movement stopped, Sakura and Naruto were able to understand that a girl with a ponytail of long blonde hair and a purple suit was hanging on Sasuke. The pink-haired girl immediately started screaming. Someone besides her touched the precious Sasuke-kun. Immediately she raised a cry, and the blonde hanging on Sasuke, Naruto still couldn't remember her name, instantly became unstuck from her idol and began a loud argument with Sakura, during which it turned out that the blonde's name was Ino. A guy of about 18 with ashen hair and black eyes that sparkled strangely behind his round glasses immediately approached the children. "If I were you, I would be quieter, you already attracted a lot of attention." He looked around meaningfully, and Ino's team arrived in time, along with Sasuke and Sakura, and noticed how most of the genin were looking at them. The children shuddered, and Naruto, well, she was used to such looks, so they didn't stir up anything particularly strong in her soul. "And who are you?" Sakura asked point blank. "My name is Yakushi Kabuto, I am taking the exam for the 6th time." "So, can you tell us something about him?" the pink-haired girl asked, apparently noticing the Konoha protector on Kabuto's forehead and having previously signed him up as an ally. Yes. I can tell you a lot about the exam and its participants." The ash-haired man agreed and sat down on the floor. "So, who or what would you like to know about? However, there is interesting information for you here too." The genin decided to interest the children and push them to certain conclusions. The reaction followed immediately. Sasuke and Naruto frowned, the latter, however, not so much. Shikamaru pretended that he was not interested, the others were clearly curious. "For example?" Sasuke asked almost calmly. Notes of dissatisfaction were clearly heard in his voice. Well, the most interesting person turned out to be Uzumaki Naruto. When I just started collecting information, she seemed to me not only weak, but it would be difficult to call her a serious opponent, unless her knowledge of forbidden techniques and a huge amount of chakra sets her apart from other genin. The guy began his story, simultaneously taking out a deck of cards and, pulling out one, released chakra into it, thereby causing a portrait of a perky girl to appear and a bunch of unreadable small text underneath it. A wave of the hand, and the entire text, along with the picture, comes off the paper and, enlarged, hangs in the air. "But yesterday, it just so happened that we crossed paths. Now, like yesterday, Uzumaki Naruto has dense aggressive chakra, and in simply huge quantities. She is capable of creating shadow clones in almost any quantity, which... What does, no matter how paradoxical, mean?" Sakura frowned. She clearly didn't like this phrase. But with the question, "Where does this guy know so much?" she apparently decided not to ask. "Yes, that's what it means." Kabuto shrugged. "Shadow cloning is a B-rank ninjutsu. If you use it incorrectly, you can die from exhaustion, and clone memories, as far as I know, can cause a very severe headache, if not make you lose consciousness. Multiple shadow cloning is a rank 8 technique derived from shadow cloning, prohibited by the first Hokage. In principle, it does not differ in anything special from the main technique, except for the number of clones created. I can't say more about these techniques, that's all I know." "Where did you get all this information?" Naruto hissed. Only one thought was spinning in her head: they were watching. However, Kurama was not far from this, repeating the same word and rushing madly in the cage. "What else does this smart guy know?" "Got it." Kabuto shrugged. "If you want, I can tell you about some of the participants." Grunting, Naruto stood up and left. She can get the information herself, but this... Yakushi just took it and, what did he do, exactly? "I just told him a little information about her." Nobody learned anything particularly important about the blonde, not a word about elemental techniques, nor about the possession of Tessen. The main thing is not to tell about Kurama, and the rest, well, the rest is not so important. And Naruto did not see or hear how Yakushi Kabuto told the children about the team from sound, how the guys from this team demonstrated creepy sound technology and horrified almost half of those present. Instead, the blonde focused on the sensations of those around her, singling out more or less worthy opponents from all the meet. Although, who is worth deceiving? Only some jounins are suitable opponents for her. Well, this was the case during the time of Izu and Dar, but now, probably, it would be difficult to find a couple of worthy opponents in all of Konoha. After making several seals, Naruto muttered, "Futon, following draft." She invested very little chakra. In the end, monitoring the movements and mood of each member of at least 30 teams that had already arrived was not part of the Jinchuriki's plans. it was only necessary to probe those present a little. The team from Suna that Naruto met stood out from the rest, mainly, of course, because among them was the Jinchuriki Shikaku. But Naruto now understood why this boy wanted to fight her. That same Yakushi Kabuto aroused fear and wariness in the blonde. He clearly did not have any aspirations to become a genin, however, neither did Naruto herself. The team from Otogakure frightened them with alien, strange, as if recycled chakra. But in one of Kusa's teams, Naruto discovered something related, plus this mysterious member of the grass team had quite a lot of chakra, which gave rise to certain thoughts. And one of the Takigakure genin was definitely an Uzumaki too. There was nothing else interesting, the genin were, frankly speaking, cannon fodder. Well, this is natural, not a single hidden village will send really worthwhile genin to a conditionally enemy settlement. You never know what the locals will wander in. They will kill and bury the most promising one somewhere, and then they will say that no one came here. Or that they died at one of the stages. But the host village is trying, bending over backwards to show all its power. That is why the team of genin from Suna, where all three are of different ages, by the way, and the sound team greatly alerted the girl. It's a no-brainer that this can't mean anything good. All that remained was to understand, are these teams related or not? So why are you sulking, Uzumaki? Sakura, who sat down next to him, grumbled. I'm not sulking. The blonde responded. But think for yourself, the fact that he was able to tell me about my chakra, which changed quite recently, suggests that he is a good, very good censor. He himself has enough chakra for 3 chunin. Further, no one, mind you, none of the genin interfere with each other with the goal of making friends and helping. Even those from the same village. And only he was impatient to help the team of 13-year-old genin. Besides, I would say that he looks more like a good jonin than an incapable genin. Plus his behavior. If he had really come to Chunin Shuriken for the 6th time, he would hardly have behaved so confidently. The blonde listed. HN. How did you notice the amount of his chakra? Firstly, Uzumaki is not just a surname. The Uzumaki were a whole clan with special chakra. Even though I am a half-breed, I also have this genome. Such chakra makes all Uzumaki censors to a greater or lesser extent, and considering that Yakushi did not try to hide his reserve, Naruto fell silent meaningfully. Sasuke had already opened his mouth to say something when the door swung open with a bang, and an impressive figure, wrapped in a cloak, appeared in the opening. With wide strides, the figure, who turned out to be a man, entered the office, letting behind him a crowd of ninjas in chunin vests. The noise in the room instantly died down. My name is Marino Ibiki, I am the examiner of the first stage of Chunin Shuriken and your worst enemy from now on. The man in the raincoat announced. Now each of you will come to the table and exchange your questionnaire for a serial number, according to which you will have to take a place, and an envelope with the task. And all the genin literally rushed towards the teacher's table, where the head of the interrogation and torture department sat comfortably. Naruto, mentally smiling at Kurama's sarcastic comments on this topic, when almost no one was left at the table, calmly walked up and exchanged her profile for a number. As a result, the girl sat down in the first row, not far from the window, to the left of Hinata. Next, Ibiki listed the rules for a long time, which, in essence, were water. The children were simply intimidated. Well, for example, if you are caught cheating 5 times, you and your team are eliminated. You can calmly write everything off at once and not worry. And, besides, the same Hyuga can easily activate the Byakugan and write it off unnoticed. But there are a lot of other techniques and genomes designed specifically for the discrete extraction of information. But those teams that are formed for attacks, sabotage, security and other similar things, they may have problems. Naruto quite rightly considered herself a general fighter, and therefore did not see a problem with cheating. And she herself has plenty of knowledge, besides, in her subconscious sits the great, powerful and all-knowing Kyubi no Kurama, the nine-tailed demon fox, the strongest bijou. Well, that's it. Stop it, I'm embarrassed. The mentioned Kyubi responded sarcastically. With a mental chuckle, Naruto opened the envelope with the task and looked directly at the tasks themselves. Skepticism was evident. Now it has become absolutely clear that the meaning of the first stage is precisely cheating. However, Naruto, in theory, is, first of all, a security officer. After all, the status of a Jinchuriki obliges him. Besides, no one would even think of teaching the demon the skills and techniques of espionage. And why? A strong, and even more so smart and inconspicuous Jinchuriki is a dangerous Jinchuriki. Now Naruto understood this. The blonde answered the first two questions almost without thinking. From the third to the fifth she thought a little, she had to think thoroughly about the sixth, she couldn't answer the seventh and further, but Kurama immediately came to the rescue and, not skimping on grumbling and sarcastic comments, literally dictated the answers to the seventh, eighth and ninth questions. Having completed her answers, the blonde looked around. Sakura looked at her own answers with enthusiasm, and Ino, sitting right behind her, was lying unconscious on the table. All clear. The red-haired boy from Suna sat with one eye closed and scribbled answers. Something told Naruto that the eyes made of sand hovering over one of the guys sitting in the corner and actively scribbling an answer were created by the Jinchuriki Ichibi. Hinata, apparently also having guessed the meaning of the exam, was already completing the answers that she had copied from someone with the help of the Byakugan. The guy from the Hyuga side branch also solved the problem of lack of knowledge to answer in the same way. A girl with two buns on her head, using mirrors hung in the corners, copied the answers and gave them to her, apparently teammate, Rock Lee, who beat up Sasuke on the stairwell. The brunette himself also did not experience any inconvenience and calmly copied, Sharingan copying the movements of the person sitting in front. Aburame Shino, who Naruto could remember graduated from the same class as her, used his bugs to extract information. Inazuka Kiba's answers were reported by his Ninken. Some guy with a note on his protector sat with his eyes closed and, it seems, listened to the scraping of a pencil of a boy from Taki writing in front. Ino had already learned the answers, and now miracles of teamwork could be observed. Shikamaru connected the bodies of his partners with shadows, Ino captured the mind of the young genius and scribbled answers on all three forms. I listened to the scratching of a pencil as the boy from Taki wrote in front of me. Ino had already learned the answers, and now miracles of teamwork could be observed. Shikamaru connected the bodies of his partners with shadows, Ino captured the mind of the young genius and scribbled answers on all three forms. I listened to the scratching of a pencil as the boy from Taki wrote in front of me. Ino had already learned the answers, and now miracles of teamwork could be observed. Shikamaru connected the bodies of his partners with shadows, Ino captured the mind of the young genius and scribbled answers on all three forms. Time is over. The examiner informed everyone. Now I'll ask the 10th question, but first I'll announce additional rules. Indignation was heard. How? More rules? Isn't it too much? Well, be quiet. Attention, I am announcing the rules only once, I will not repeat them. So. First. If at least one member of the team answers the question incorrectly, the results of the entire team are cancelled and the team is considered to have failed. Second. Everyone answers this question separately. Third. Those teams, at least one member of which could not answer the question, will never be able to become Chunin again. This has never happened before. Someone was indignant. Consider yourself lucky. Ibiki grinned nastily. I give you 10 minutes to think, anyone who is not sure that they can answer correctly can leave the exam and try next time. And everyone was crushed by a powerful CI. Naruto, in response to this, reflexively released a reciprocal, more powerful KI, which Kurama willingly shared. The genin, except for Gaara, even some chunin were instantly literally crushed. It immediately became clear which of those present were censors. They were the first to identify the source of the thirst for murder and stared at the blonde. Some are scared, like a red-haired girl with glasses, and some are with hatred, like a guy with bright crimson hair and a mole under his right eye. A minute later, absolutely all the genin, chunin and the examiner were drilling a hole in Naruto. "Sorry, reflex," the blonde said absolutely emotionlessly, removing the ominous aura. The examiner gave the girl a strange look, but remained silent. A shaking hand immediately shot up into the air. The audience was left by a tear-stained girl of about 14 with 2 short ponytails, the same guy with crimson hair and another guy with dark skin, a hedgehog of burgundy-brown hair and almost glowing amber eyes. Naruto just chuckled. Such ninjas have no place in a world where the slightest delay spent fighting someone else's lust for murder could cost their lives. In the 10 minutes that were given for reflection, almost a third of the participants left the audience. And something, definitely not wary glances in her direction, told Naruto that it was because of her. Sakura tried several times to raise her hand, but was faced with the blonde's searching gaze, penetrating her very soul. In fact, Naruto was just wondering how the mischievous and despising pink-haired teammate would behave, given the events that had just happened. Time is over. Attention, I am announcing the 10th question. Those who remained, gave up. Ibiki proclaimed. There was silence for a moment. But immediately after this moment, the audience literally exploded with cries of joy and indignation. However, the children were not allowed to think for long. The head of the interrogation and torture department took off his bandana with a hitai, revealing terrible scars, and began a speech about how the true goal of the first stage was to test their ability to obtain information and their willingness to sacrifice something to complete the mission. But he was not allowed to finish his speech. Naruto had suspicions that Marino Ibiki didn't even tell half of what he had prepared. The auditorium window was broken in the most barbaric manner, and a package flew into the resulting hole. Naruto, trusting her reflexes, drove chakra to the covers with Tezsen, a small lock clicked, fan slid into her hands, and a huge bundle of fabric was thrown against the wall by a powerful gust of wind. Reflex again? Ibiki chuckled. Naruto nodded without denying it. Your reflexes are useful. The man approved, to which the blonde herself only shrugged, putting her favorite fans back into their cases. Meanwhile, a disgraced and very angry woman in a very revealing outfit got out of the package. Glancing significantly at the genin sitting in the audience, she clicked her tongue. 27 teams. That's a bit much, Ibiki-san. Well, it's okay, at my stage more than half will be eliminated. My name is Mitarashi Anko, and I am the second examiner of Chunin Shuriken. The second stage will begin right now, so don't lag behind, suckers. And Mitarashi jumped out of her own broken window. _________. A type of Japanese traditional shoe, often worn in the garden. So that no one starts to be indignant on the topic, why is Chunin Shuriken at the beginning of June? I'll say right away that in Japan the school year ends in March. We take into account the canonical month of D-rank missions, add 3 or 4 weeks of completing a mission in the Land of Waves, a week of Naruto's coma, and we get June. Naruto, accustomed to strictly following the orders of her superiors, obediently jumped out the window after Mitarashi Anko, thereby causing a wave of laughter among the genin. After all, it's the 3rd floor, and you can't just jump off here. Even as a shinobi you'll get injured, unless, of course, you can properly distribute chakra throughout your body. And this, in fact, requires almost perfect chakra control and very good reactions, which mainly only jounins and very strong chunins can boast of. Several children, those who were closest to the windows, instantly stuck to them. And they were honored to see how the blonde landed on her feet, crouched down, softening the force of the collision of her feet with the compacted earth, stood up, shook off the grayish dust from her kimono and calmly walked after the examiner of the second stage. The genins, as if frozen, unstuck from the window and poured out into the street. There were smart people who also tried to jump out the window, but everyone was slowed down by the protective barrier installed under the first Hokage. And everyone could only guess, how did this strange woman in a too-open suit and the no less strange blonde, who reflexively almost killed the examiner, manage to leave the building without hindrance? It's just that none of the genin knew that their barrier did not allow them through, thanks to special passes that none of the jounin had, and a recognized Fuinjutsu master could not be stopped by such an old and frankly childish barrier. Somewhere halfway along the way, Naruto was caught up by her teammates. And the first thing Sakura did was try to slap the blonde on the back of the head. Exactly that she tried, since the girl herself calmly lowered her head so that the blow passed just a couple of millimeters from the blonde top of her head. Uzumaki, what kind of show-off is this? You almost killed Anko-sensei, you scared half of the genin, you. I acted as I would have acted in enemy territory, Sakura. Naruto quietly interrupted the flow of indignation. What if it wasn't Anko-sensei who flew through the window? But some saboteur? How can this be? We are in Konoha, inside a village protected by walls and barriers, with strong ninjas. Didn't you think that enemies could sneak into this very Konoha at any time, especially now? Pretend to be one of the mentors of the genin team and get a pass, after which they can do almost anything, create sabotage, spread false rumors, or even kill the Hokage. What are you talking about? Kill the Hokage? Well, just think about it, who would dare to do this? Even if there is such an idiot, what can he do to the strongest ninja of Konoha? Stop it, Haruno. Sasuke suddenly interrupted. Uzumaki's reflexes are very useful, even the examiner noted this. Enough. But, Sasuke-kun, the pink-haired girl began timidly, but under the murderous gaze of her partner she deflated. By the way, Uzumaki. You, like Anko-sensei, were able to leave the academy through the window, the others could not. Will you explain yourself? There is nothing to explain. The barrier has been there since the time of the founders. Thanks to him, anyone who does not have a special pass can leave the building only through the door. The barrier was placed by Uzumaki, Fuinjutsu masters. I, like all other blood Uzumaki, have a predisposition to Fuinjutsu. Breaking this barrier was quite simple for me, only basic knowledge was enough. The blonde shrugged. So the genin followed Mitarashi Anko, who was confidently leading the crowd somewhere. The woman stopped just next to the area fenced with a mesh fence. This is Forbidden Military Training Ground number 44, better known as the Forest of Death. The jonin told everyone in a rather cheerful tone. You are going to spend the next 5 days here. So, this is a test for survival? Asked someone from the crowd. It's not that simple, baby. In the center of the training ground, that is, 5 kilometers from each gate, there is a tower, which you will have to reach in these 5 days. But that's not all. Each team will be given one of the scrolls in that tent over there. The woman, without looking, waved her hand in the right direction. Heaven or earth. Half will receive one type of scroll, half another type. You must come to the tower with at least one copy of each scroll. So, only half of it will pass? Asked some girl. At most half of it will pass. Anko bared her teeth in response. In addition, there are several other conditions. If one of the team members dies, gets lost, or is otherwise incapacitated, the stage fails. If you don't complete it within 5 days, the stage is failed. If you open the scrolls outside the tower, the stage is failed. And yes, in the forest, several genin shuddered at such a loving name for the Forest of Death. There are all sorts of very, very dangerous creatures. So, you sign these pieces of paper. Like, a waiver of claims in the event of your death. Because if one of you dies there, and he will definitely die, I don't want to have any problems. You have up to 3 o'clock in the afternoon to think, that is, 40 minutes. Having finished her speech, the examiner handed out sheets of paper to the children, completely covered with all sorts of sentences and phrases, the general essence of which boiled down to, "It will be my own fault if I die at the second stage of Chunin Shuriken." Sakura nervously reread the text, which suggested various options for death, and turned more and more pale. Sasuke, with a straight face, simply read and signed below, although his emotions were not far from the pink-haired girl's. Naruto was not at all impressed. In the time of Izuna and Madara, enemies weren't even driven out like that, just for the sake of a couple of lines of information. And what's that? Yes, any more or less prepared genin, in Naruto's understanding, of course, can survive in this forest. By 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the 7th team stood in line to hand over the signed documents and receive the scroll. They received the scroll, Sky. Naruto silently made a shadow copy of the scroll, which she gave to Sasuke, and the real scroll was sealed in the dimensional pocket on her left glove. The children were then led to one of the gates, above which there was a sign with the number 15. When the bell rang, the gates opened, signaling the start of the second stage. Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura immediately entered the forest. After about 20 minutes of walking, the brunette said, "It's somehow suspicious that the forbidden training ground is surrounded by just a flimsy fence that even a civilian can climb over if they want." "I would not say." The blonde objected to him quietly and emotionlessly. "The training ground is surrounded by a powerful protective barrier," it was. Now, of course, the work of art of the Uzumaki clan can be easily hacked by any shinobi with at least the rudiments of knowledge of Fuinjutsu. "How do you know about this?" Sakura snorted. In response, she received an icy look, promising all the torments of hell to the one to whom the look was addressed. "What?" Naruto immediately pointed her eyes at the nearest bushes. At this, Sakura frowned and shook her head, indicating that she did not understand. Then the blonde, sighing, raised her right hand to shoulder level and lowered it, urging her to bend down. The green-eyed girl again did not understand anything, unlike Sasuke. He, a little surprised by his teammate's demand, nevertheless complied with it and squatted down. Glancing sideways at her idol, Sakura repeated his action. The blonde fed chakra into the covers of the tessen, forcing the locks to open and catching the fallen fans. A short sound was heard, futon, gust of wind, after which the girl waved both fans, turning her whole body towards the bushes where she was pointing a couple of seconds ago. Translucent streams of air rushed towards the target at incredible speed, stripped the bushes and nailed a genin with an amigacure protector on his forehead and a respiratory mask on his face to a nearby tree. "Get down, or I'll finish him off." Naruto's quiet voice carried across a small area due to its volume. Sasuke noted that for the first time he heard notes of steel in the voice of his good-natured and sunny teammate. And that scared him. It seemed that in front of him was not the self-confident weakling who had been assigned to his team, but a completely different person who had gone through wars and seen death. Meanwhile, right in front of the 7th team, 2 children about 14 or 15 years old came down from the trees. They were dressed approximately the same as the first one, who was lying unconscious under the tree. "Self-confident little thing." One spat contemptuously. "You don't have the guts to kill someone. And do you really think that you can blackmail us like that?" As if to refute the words of the genin from AIM, Naruto threw one tessen towards the lying genin. Leaving behind a light blue chakra ribbon, the fan, accelerated by futon, almost instantly pierced the unconscious boy's throat, after which it returned to the mistress's hand. Sasuke was once again amazed at the differences between Naruto before the coma and Naruto after the coma. And the last one scared him. Never before had the brunette seen so much calm on the face of a man who had just killed someone. There was disgust, and gloating, and hatred, and even pleasure, but he had never seen such icy calm. Even Itachi, who slaughtered the clan with a stony face and expressed emotions only with his eyes, did not look so calm. And only after a few seconds, insanely long seconds, the brunette realized that it was not calm that was literally coming from Naruto. The emotion that came from the blonde was akin to emptiness. Tired doom. Sasuke himself experienced the same thing, looking at the corpses of his clanmates. But where did such emotion come from the always carefree and cheerful Uzumaki Naruto? You won't get through the second stage without it. The blonde affirmed, nodding at the fresh corpse. You little creature. You will pay for this. The genin, who had been silent until now, exploded, starting to form seals. Sueton, water needles. Futon, cutting streams. Swinging the fans again, the stream of air collided with the water projectiles and turned them towards the creator. Dozens of thin jets of water, like needles, mixed with dangerous currents of wind and first stung genin aim, and then cut them, only now both. Completely synchronously, the guys fell to the ground. Naruto calmly walked over to the unconscious bodies and searched them. One found a scroll. Sky. The blonde silently tossed it to Sasuke. Instead of a shadow copy. If something happens, we'll use a scroll to get rid of the enemy team. It makes no sense to get involved in battles every time. You killed a man so easily, Sakura said distantly, staring blankly at the corpse. How could you? He probably had a family, dreams, goals. And you just killed him. How can you do that? Sakura. We live in the world of shinobi. The rule of this world is, kill or be killed. Sooner or later, you, Sasuke, and everyone else would have to be killed. And more than once. This is our world, accept it. Naruto's teammate interrupted emotionlessly. Let's go, you shouldn't stay in one place for long. Sasuke and Sakura had to silently obey, since there was nothing else they could do. The children walked silently through the forest of death. 2 hours later, Sakura even stopped shying away from giant insects. Naruto constantly turned her head, trying to feel the chakra of possible opponents, to catch the subtlest smells and sounds. The silence, broken only by the barely audible rustling of trees and the occasional cries of animals coming from afar, began to oppress the pink-haired girl. Even during the journey to the land of waves there was no such silence. Therefore, the young kunoichi tried to destroy this silence, and at the same time, at least a little distract from the memories of the corpse with its throat cut. Hey, Uzumaki, you still haven't told me how you know about the barrier around the forest. I feel barriers. The blonde shrugged. I can still see the most powerful ones. For example? The second girl on the team immediately asked a new question. Well, I see the barrier around Konoha as a barely noticeable whitish cylinder. But only if I'm outside the barrier. From within I only feel the boundaries. And the barriers around the house on the outskirts of Konoha, about which there are various horror stories and rumors, I see as a rather dense, albeit translucent, dome. Are you saying that some barn is better protected than the whole of Konoha? The girl immediately jumped up. No, I do not want to. Firstly, there is not one barrier around the house, but at least 4. Secondly, the barrier around Konoha is a signal barrier. It should not be very noticeable, otherwise any good sensor will detect it. The barriers around that house are, for the most part, protective in nature. Consequently, they are denser and more powerful. And again the children walked in silence. Naruto mentally talked with Kurama, Sakura digested the information received, and Sasuke again compared Naruto present and Naruto past, again and again coming to a simple and obvious conclusion. During the week-long coma, something happened that greatly changed the girl. But what? The brunette's thoughts were interrupted by the sudden appearance of a huge white snake, which threw Sakura away with its tail and swallowed Naruto, after which it quickly crawled away in an unknown direction. The blonde unsuccessfully tried to wound the animal from the inside with fans. The snake was too big and the tights were too small. Even the gust of wind and cutting currents could not penetrate the thick walls of the reptile's stomach. The blonde decided not to make attempts to get out with the help of Suetun or Kato at all. If it doesn't work, then the captive risks getting hurt herself, if not dying. The idea came up to break the snake with the help of clones, but it was almost instantly rejected. I simply didn't want to waste a huge amount of chakra in the forest of death. The solution to the problem came unexpectedly. "Ku, can you help?" "Sure, not a problem." The blonde's body was instantly enveloped in bubbling red chakra, burning everything in its path. Naruto immediately slumped against one of the walls of her stomach. Hissing quietly, the organ began to burn, quickly forming a hole. The snake wheezed, then fell to the ground and disappeared with a pop. Naruto barely managed to get out. A recruited animal, that's all the blonde thought. She was already thinking about carrying out a reverse summons and concluding a summoning contract, but something constantly got in the way, and after the death of Izuna and, especially, Madara, there was somehow no time for that. But the girl was prevented from thinking by bursts of chakra several hundred meters away. The first, most noticeable source was aggressive, thick and simply huge, more than Naruto herself 1.5 times, if not twice. The second source was quite familiar, although almost empty. The blonde recognized Sasuke in it with horror, and another source, barely perceptible, with almost neutral chakra, in which Sakura was easily guessed. The blonde rushed to the springs. Just a few seconds later, she was able to see Sasuke, supporting Sakura, dodging along the tree branches from the attacks of a huge white snake, on whose head stood the very source of aggressive chakra. At that moment, Naruto sharply regretted that due to suicide, her chakra became denser, but decreased in quantity. "Now you have to dodge." The blonde frowned with displeasure. It didn't take much mental effort to understand that Sasuke and Sakura were practically incapacitated. Sighing heavily, the girl ran at top speed to her teammates. Of course, it would be better to attack from behind, but then Sasuke and Sakura could get hurt. And sacrificing 2 genin would be too wasteful, as Madara would say. He, like no one else, understood the value of young blood in the clan, and later in the village. And Sasuke reminded me a lot of Izuna. Previously, you saved Uchiha and Mop, guided by other principles. Kurama responded somewhat sarcastically from his subconscious. "Futon, cutting streams." The blonde said from somewhere on the side of the attacker, waving her fans in a cross-shaped motion. "How interesting. Did you get out so quickly?" hissed a man with long black hair, amber yellow eyes and pale, almost white skin. The ninja dodged the rather powerful attack without any problems. "You are not a genin. Who are you?" I am Orochimaru." The man answered simply. Naruto frantically remembered why the name seemed familiar. "This is one of the Sannin 3. Kurama yawned in his subconscious. The blonde mentally cursed. After waking up in the present time, she still felt some weakness. After all, only yesterday she came to her senses, and there was not enough time for a complete recovery, given all the changes in the compressed chakra, body, mind and other things. And here is one of the greatest ninjas in history. Of course, Orochimaru is no match for Izuna and, especially, Madara, but Naruto is now, as they say, out of shape, and therefore the limit of his capabilities can only guess. The first step was to get rid of the snake, which could seriously harm Sasuke and Sakura even without calling it. Nodding to herself, the girl quickly formed the seals, pronouncing the name of the technique, Kato, Hellfire. The snake at which the technique was aimed immediately caught fire and hissed painfully. With a loud poof, she disappeared in a cloud of smoke. Sasuke, who was no longer affected by the genjutsu and who no longer saw his own death, quickly brought Sakura to his senses and went down to Naruto, intending to continue the fight. "Sasuke! Take Sakura and run away," the blonde ordered. Now, more than ever, she looked like a leader. Her calm voice did not ring with steel, but for some reason it was scary to disobey him. Therefore, Sasuke, reluctantly nodding, took his second teammate by the hand and forced her to follow him, thereby interrupting the girl's indignation. "Do you care about your comrades?" "Commendable," the snake Sannin hissed. "You know, I like people with a look like yours. The look of a man who has lost everything. These are easy to manipulate." The answer was a skeptically raised eyebrow. Then Orochimaru, as if to a small child, began to explain. Tsunade had this look after the Third World War. Then she lost her loved one. And the entire Senju clan was destroyed. "Don't compare me to Senju," the girl interrupted the man's speech rather sharply. But, realizing that it sounded suspicious, she added, "Tsunade. We are two different people." Of course, interrupting the conversation is a violation of the unspoken shinobi rule: the stronger you recognize the enemy, the longer the conversation should be. But Naruto is not the talkative type. In addition, the topic of Senju was unpleasant to her for obvious reasons. Although the destruction of the entire founding clan gave rise to certain thoughts, considering that the second founding clan was destroyed only a few years ago. Naruto quickly formed the seals and said, "Futon, Kato, breath of the fire dragon." The girl raised her palms to her mouth, as if she was about to scream, and exhaled a long and powerful stream of flame. In the place where one of the Sannin three stood a second ago, there was only a charred body, which for some reason did not fall. Immediately, as if answering the silent question, "Why is the corpse standing?" the corpse's head threw back, its mouth opened, and two white hands appeared from there. A couple of seconds later there was no dust left from the charred body, and a whole and unharmed Orochimaru stood in front of Naruto. "It was unexpected," he commented. "But now I will be serious and ready for anything." And the serpent fulfilled his promise. No more techniques could harm the man so much, and he himself managed to respond with other techniques. The distance between the opponents was constantly changing. A couple of times they even clashed in taijutsu. Naruto had even uncovered the hems and managed to inflict several wounds with them. After almost 20 minutes of frantic racing through the clearing and trees, the opponents stopped opposite each other. "You're interesting. Perhaps I'll give you a stamp." The man made a seal of concentration and, sharply stretched his neck. Naruto did the first thing that came to her mind. She prepared to place a special Fuin Jutsu, Jigaku Rokudo. The first way. The rest of the sounds were drowned in a deafening ringing that appeared at the moment the blonde's hand touched Orochimaru's face. Black Fuin pattern spread across Sannin's body from his face, and he himself fell unconscious. Naruto tiredly fell to her knees, and then her face to the ground, unable to withstand the tension, and the wounds, along with fatigue and poison, it was unclear how and when injected, made themselves felt. Sasuke, who had been watching the battle with Sakura all this time from a safe distance and persistently convincing himself that he would come to the aid of his teammate at any moment, almost instantly found himself next to the girl. Sakura ran out to get her idol. "Pick up some fans," the brunette ordered, and the girl hastened to fulfill the demand. Sasuke himself picked up the unconscious blonde. The genin decided to hide in the roots of a tree that formed a huge cave. Naruto by that time began to mutter something, squint her eyes painfully, tremble, and even twitch sometimes. Perspiration appeared on his forehead, tears rolled from his eyes, his face turned red and became covered with white spots. Sasuke carefully laid the girl on the piled leaves and removed the protector from her neck. The blonde immediately curled up and trembled even more. Only Dar and Izu reached the brunette's ears. The girl frantically called them, sobbing. Naruto woke up from the sounds of battle, as if reaching the blonde's ears through thick water. Somehow taking a sitting position and involuntarily grimacing from severe pain in her head, the girl asked Kurama to conduct a diagnosis. He immediately stated that all the wounds had already healed, only the consequences of the poison that was not immediately removed remained. Sighing, the girl called for her tessen, which, surprisingly, arrived almost instantly. The blonde concluded that one of her partners picked them up and brought them to the shelter. Next, Naruto sent chakra through the channels to cheer herself up and finally remove the remnants of the consequences of using the kenjutsu she had developed. And then she crawled out of the place where she woke up, towards the sounds of battle. And there was definitely something to see. Sakura with unevenly cut hair fought taijutsu with a girl with very long black hair and a protector with a note, and Sasuke held back the pressure of two more sounders. Apparently, the fight started quite recently, or the brunette entered into it quite recently. It was clearly difficult for him to restrain two people at once. Both of Naruto's teammates were clearly suffering from lack of sleep. The bruises under both of their eyes clearly indicated this. A wave of irritation rose from somewhere inside. Not rage or even anger, but irritation. Some people experience this when someone unpleasant, but annoying, clings to them or their loved ones. The tessons, which had not been put back into their covers, were suddenly opened. Having imbued them with wind chakra, the blonde threw the fans at Sasuke's opponents. They fell dead with their throats cut. Wasting no time, Naruto quickly moved to Sakura's opponent and, gathering more chakra in her hand, hit the girl in the chest, instantly splashing out energy. With eyes full of horror, the brunette looked at the hand that had sunk into her body up to the wrist joint and hung on that very hand. With a sharp movement, the blonde pulled her hand away, causing the already dead nameless kunoichi to fall to the ground with a thud. Naruto looked at the corpses with an indifferent expression. Sakura was no longer hysterical about this topic. Sasuke generally stood there looking as if everything that was happening was right. How long was I unconscious? About a day. The brunette immediately responded. Naruto, meanwhile, pulled out a scroll with the hieroglyph Earth from that same girl's pouch. What was that technique that you used to defeat Orochimaru? Fuinjutsu from the Kenjutsu section. The full title is Fuinjutsu, Jigaku Rokudo. The first way. There are 6 of them in total. The last path means death. And, the other 5? Sakura spoke up. The first is paralysis. The second is also paralysis, only painful. The third one violates the SCH. The fourth completely destroys the circulation system. The fifth, tortured, one might say. The victim experiences intense pain, so much so that if the seal did not maintain life support, the victim may die from painful shock. The sixth path from the inside sets fire to the victim's kirakue, which sets the rest of the organs on fire. In fact, it burns the victim from the inside. Horror, was all the pink-haired girl said. Naruto just shrugged. What should be the consequences of the sixth path, if after the first you were so feverish? Well, I was feverish more likely because of exhaustion and poison. Using the paths only exhausts and tires me. Have you been poisoned? Sakura immediately perked up. Yes, but now the poison has already been neutralized. And, thanks for your concern. The blonde squeezed out a faint semblance of a smile and headed towards the shelter. I can heal you with medical chakra. We can stop and wait until you recover. If you want, Sakura, I can restore your hair length. Later, when we get to the tower. The pink-haired girl waved it off. But thanks for the offer. She immediately added. I didn't have time to get tired and didn't receive any serious injuries. I can move on. Sasuke-kun? I am alright too. The brunette responded. If you can go, then we pack our things and move out. He turned to the blonde. I have fully recovered. The children quickly collected a few things and hid the traces of their presence here. Quite calmly, the genin set off on their way. In your delirium, you called for some Dara and Izu. Who is this? Somewhere in the middle of the way, Sasuke asked, as if by chance. These are abbreviations of the names of people dear to me. Naruto's gaze immediately turned from empty to somewhat sad, which did not escape the rather observant brunette. Once again the boy was amazed at how vividly emotions were expressed on the blonde's face with almost imperceptible movements of the facial muscles. Slightly arched eyebrows. Barely noticeable pursed lips, a small wrinkle above the bridge of the nose. And the brunette immediately stopped wanting to ask when loser Uzumaki managed to have people so dear to her that she called them in her delirium. After all, as far as Sasuke knew, his teammate was an orphan with no relatives and had not yet made any friends. The thoughts of the only boy in the 7th team were interrupted by the still unusual quiet voice of the very object of reflection. We came. The second stage can be considered completed. Underscore. Can be literally translated from Japanese as 6 paths of hell. As soon as the door closed behind the children, Sasuke and Sakura began to look around. Naruto ran her gaze over the available space and, having folded the seals, created a follower draft. She immediately answered the questioning glances of her comrades. Futon sensory technique. Allows you to collect data on the chakra and, therefore, the approximate strength of the enemy. Well, and a couple of other factors. Everything here is covered with a thin layer of chakra, which means there are barriers. In the room itself there were chakra imprints of 9 people, not a single one of our team among them. What do you think this inscription means? Sakura pointed her finger at the inscription on the sign opposite the entrance. The trio read the following: if necessary, seek wisdom, prepare and wait. If you need, hard work will lead you to victory. If you have both, and any task will not become a hindrance for you. We won't know the meaning until we find out what words are missing. Nodding to his thoughts and muttering something, Sasuke looked around, trying to figure out what to do, or at least get any clues. You can also feel chakra in the scrolls, but it's not familiar to me. I think it's worth opening them. Naruto broke the silence that hung for a couple of seconds. The blonde then took both scrolls out of the seal and tossed one to Sakura. On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. The girls almost simultaneously opened the scrolls, and thick smoke poured out of them. Without thinking twice, Naruto threw the piece of paper onto the floor. Her pink-haired teammate followed the blonde's example. When the smoke cleared, the trio of genin could see a smiling Chunin with dark skin and a scar on the bridge of his nose. You have passed the second stage, he stated, while Naruto was intensely remembering why this shinobi seemed familiar to her. Kurama was disturbing with his loud snoring. Irika-sensei! Sakura exclaimed, snapping the blonde out of her almost meditative state. But now it was easier to remember that the Chunin standing in front of the genin was none other than their sensei from the academy. What are you doing here? Every team of genin must be met by a Chunin. Do you know what this means? The pink-haired girl again pointed her finger at the sign with the inscription. This is the motto of the ninja, written by the first Hokage. The missing words are heaven and earth. And, if you substitute them in place of the gaps, you get, if you need heaven, look for wisdom, prepare and wait. If you need earth, hard work will lead you to victory. If there is both heaven and earth, any task will not be a hindrance for you. Heaven means mind and earth means body. That is, if you are not very smart, then you should read more books and develop your thinking in every possible way, and if you are weak in body, you need to train more. Irika told the children. And now I must tell you the rules of conduct for the next 3 days. You cannot go outside the tower, and skirmishes with other teams are also prohibited. You will be fed 3 times a day, and there are training grounds on the 2nd floor. Don't go higher than the 5th floor. The bedrooms are located on the third floor. Showers and toilets are there. Well, everything, it seems. See you guys. The Chunin waved his hand goodbye and then disappeared in a cloud of smoke. And again there was silence. Naruto looked around and walked confidently towards the stairs. All she wanted now was to take a shower and stretch out on the bed. But you cannot afford such weakness. Quickly rising to the third floor, the blonde, guided by chakra, walked past the nearest doors and opened the fourth door on the left. The trio of genin were lucky enough to see a not very large room with 3 futons spread on the floor, a small window with a narrow sill and completely bare gray walls, floor and ceiling. The beauty is indescribable, damn it. Sakura said sourly. Sasuke only chuckled at his teammates' words, and Naruto chose to ignore them. The last futon was immediately dragged by the blonde to the corner of the room. Taking out a brush with ink and several pieces of chakra-conducting paper from the seal on her glove, the girl quickly began drawing seals for the barriers. The first step was to enclose the selected futon. Following him, Naruto fenced off the entire room from uninvited guests. The girl seemed completely oblivious to her partner's gazes. Once the barriers were over, the Jinchuriki sat in the lotus position, intending to descend into the subconscious and talk to Kurama. But she was not allowed to do this. Sakura began to actively pester her idol. Moreover, she did it very noisily. Sakura, I promised to grow your hair. Oh, exactly. The pink-haired girl exclaimed, hitting her forehead. Are you sure you won't burn me like you did before the exam? The girl asked cautiously. No. Hair extensions are made using medical chakra, which by definition simply cannot harm a person. How long are you? Well, maybe, up to the middle of the back. Nodding, Naruto rose from her seat, walked over to her teammate and sat down behind her. Putting her hands on Sakura's head, Naruto closed her eyes, concentrating and beginning to pump medical chakra into her hands. The pink hair began to slowly lengthen. When they reached the desired length, the blonde removed her hands and stood up and walked to her futon. Sitting in the lotus position, she began to meditate again. Kurama was not in the mood to talk, so the girl did not descend into the subconscious. It was terribly boring. The teams from Konoha arrived on the very last day, almost all of them, so there wasn't much to do. Food was brought, as Irika said, 3 times a day, but there was very little of it. And her appearance was, to put it mildly, unattractive. Naruto took pity on her teammates and shared a couple of apples. On the very last day, when everyone who passed was gathered on the 6th floor, Naruto gave everyone a tonic pill. When all the genin had gathered on the 6th floor, which was a huge hall with niches, at the end of which there was a statue in the form of hands making a sheep seal, the 3rd Hokage came into the center of the hall. He began to talk about how Chunin Shuriken is actually a replacement for war, a kind of specific way to let off steam. Next, the strongest Konoha ninja explained to the examinees that they were representatives of their villages, their faces. Naruto chose to ignore the speech, because she considered it complete nonsense. The speech of the old man, who began to explain the rules, was interrupted by a sickly-looking jonin. He, interrupting to cough every few words, began to narrate. My name is Gekko Heiate. I am the 3rd stage examiner of Chunin Shuriken. Since there were too many participants this time, qualifying battles will be held. Opponents will be selected using a special scoreboard. I, as a judge, can stop the fight at any time to avoid unnecessary casualties. But before the intermediate battles begin, I have to ask, is anyone willing to leave? The battles are single, and the departure of one of the team members does not affect the remaining ones in any way. I want to leave. I'm very tired, and I don't have enough chakra. The ash-haired guy from Konoha, whom Naruto easily recognized as Kabuto Yakushi, said with a wry smile. The jonin waved his hand behind his back, where huge panels moved apart above the statue in different directions, showing the world an electronic display where hieroglyphs were already flashing. Uchiha Sasuke and Ikado Yoroi, stay, I ask the rest to go up to the balconies. Naruto and Sakura obediently climbed the steps to one of the niches. For some reason, all the Konoha teams ended up on one side, and the teams from the rest of the villages on the other. Kakashi immediately appeared behind the girls. Sakura almost squealed and jumped away from her mentor, while Naruto nodded dryly in greeting, without being distracted from the battle that had begun. Sasuke-kun will win, right? The pink-haired girl quietly asked herself, looking at how the older opponent, Yoroi, constantly reduces the battle to taijutsu and, taking advantage of her longer arms, drains chakra. Certainly. Apparently, the guy only relies on frontal attacks and chakra draining. All his tactics boil down to preventing him from attacking in time. It only takes a few seconds for Sasuke to activate his Sharingan and put the guy under Genjutsu. Or, using the same Sharingan, track the movements and defeat Yoroi in taijutsu. Naruto said, completely not seeming to notice Sakura's square eyes and her mentor's bulging eye. Sooner or later, Sasuke will simply lose his temper and start taking his opponent seriously, and then Yoroi will lose. Seeing Sakura's misunderstanding, the blonde sighed and began to explain, due to his clan origin, Sasuke has a greatly inflated self-esteem. He simply does not take most of his opponents seriously, as a result of which he does not fight at full strength. The naked eye can see that Sasuke is holding back. Meanwhile, in the Ikado arena, Yoroi grabbed the brunette by the head and, grinning disgustingly, began talking about the weak child and simultaneously sucking out chakra. Everyone in the room could see how the Uchiha's face was distorted with rage. The Sharingan with two tomo lit up in his eyes. A sharp kick, and the recently grinning Yoroi holds on to his injured arm. Without allowing the enemy to recover, Sasuke threw several kunai at him, after which he brought the fight to taijutsu, this time coming from the side, then from behind and delivering blows that were quite fast for a genin. The last blow, and the enemy flies with his back into the wall, into which he crashed, after which he slid down it and never got up again. The winner is Uchiha Sasuke. Sakura and Ino squealed with delight, and Sasuke himself, looking as if nothing else should have been expected, rose to his team. Meanwhile, the scoreboard read, Kankuro vs Tsurugi Misumi. Both jumped to the floor from the balconies. After the judge gave the go-ahead, no one was in a hurry to start the fight. Instead, the guys began to exchange phrases, the general meaning of which boiled down to, better give up, I'm stronger. The fight itself was spectacular, but boring. Kankuro, a puppet from Suna, showed rather poor taijutsu, sluggishly fending off most of the enemy's attacks, and Misumi demonstrated to everyone his mastery of either Haiden or Kekkei Genkai, which allows him to stretch and bend his body like he pleases. As a result, the Konokovitz tied up Kankuro and, fastening his hands around the enemy's neck, demanded to surrender, to which he received a firm refusal. Then the crunching of vertebrae was heard, and it turned out that all this time the battle had been fought with a puppet, and the real Kankuro was hidden in bandages. Then the puppet twisted in Misumi's weakened grip and captured him. Kankuro won. The next couple is Haruno Sakura and Yamanaka Ino. Nothing particularly interesting either. At first, the girls argued about who was better suited to Sasuke-kun, then they made a bet, and then finally agreed on taijutsu. Here Sakura had a strong advantage in the form of greater physical strength, and Ino had a strong advantage in the form of better flexibility. A few blows, and the girls broke the distance. The blonde tried to use Haiden and grab her opponent's body, but the pink-haired one deftly dodged and began to weave around so as not to get caught in the mind transfer seal. However, this did not help her much, and Sakura was soon controlled by Ino, but the pink-haired one did not allow her friend to give up in her body, throwing her back into her own body. Naruto really didn't like his teammate's ability to throw a member of the Yamanaka clan out of her body. No, the blonde did not at all want to lose to Sakura. But still this feint with her ears was very alarming. And not only her, but most of the jonin and even a few genin tensed or were surprised. As a result, both fell unconscious and declared a draw. Next, Ichinami Kakuro from Takigakure and Nara Shikamaru fought. Almost no entertainment, but interesting. Using tactics and his Haiden, the laziest genin of his generation easily defeated his opponent. Next were Temari, a girl from the Ichibi Jinchuriki team, and Tenten, a gunsmith from Konoha. At first, Naruto was confident that she would win Tenten due to the fact that Temari clearly underestimated her opponent. However, everything turned out exactly the opposite. All of the brown-haired girl's attacks were carried out with weapons, while Temari's attacks were windy and easily repulsed any weapon. As a result, Tenten, with a badly damaged spine, went to the hospital wing, and Temari rose to her team with a satisfied grin. Next was the battle between Ichinami Tsukiko and Akimichi Choji. The fight was long, but boring and uninteresting. Naruto noted to herself that, unlike her likely brother, Tsukiko used not only basic ninjutsu and taijutsu, but also something like a genome, sending waves of sound and air at the enemy. However, this did not help much. Choji used Haiden and turned into a spinning ball, which is not dangerous for attacks of this type. But either the boy ran out of chakra, or the time to use the technique was limited, and the heir to the Akimichi clan had to accept his real size and switch to taijutsu. As a result, the 20 minutes allotted for the fight ended, and Tsukiko was declared the winner, since she was not as badly battered as her opponent. Next were Uzumaki Naruto and Inuzuka Kiba. The girl jumped into the arena quite calmly. The Inuzuka, grinning as if he was confident of his victory, walked down the stairs. When the opponents stood opposite each other, the brown-haired man said, "You better give up, Uzumaki. You can't win." Naruto in response only calmly looked at the self-confident genin and took a fighting stance. As soon as the judge gave the go-ahead, the blonde took off and launched several lightning-fast strikes until she ran into a weak block. It only took a second for the girl to understand what was happening, but it was enough for Kiba to grab a large red pill from his pocket and reach over to his dog to feed the drug to the Ninken. With a sharp kick, Naruto knocked the pill out of her opponent's hand and finished off Kiba with a blow to the brown-haired man's head with the same foot. The genin fell to the floor unconscious. The winner is Uzumaki Naruto. The girl silently rose to her people. The next fight was between Aburame Shino and Yutaro Niji. The latter used gloves in battle, from which thin, barely noticeable threads burst out, through which lightning bolts ran. The fight was rather boring and sluggish, until Niji suddenly fell to the floor, not completing the blow he had started. "I ordered my beetles to pull chakra from your gloves," Shino explained to the enemy, who was in a semi-fainting state. The next fight was between Hyuga Niji and Hyuga Hinata. The first one acted arrogantly and demanded that Hinata give up. The girl timidly refused. As soon as the judge gave the go-ahead, both took the clan's fighting stance and activated their Byakugan. Oh, the veins on their faces are swollen. Sakura, who had recently returned from the hospital wing, was frightened. This is a sign of the activation of the Hyuga clan dojutsu, the Byakugan. Naruto responded quietly, looking intently at how the two Hyuga were talking. Her own lip-reading vision was lacking, but Kurama graciously shared his powerful eyes. "You better give up, Hinata-sama. I'm stronger, you can't win. Niji and Ai-san. I can do it. Or at least I'll try." The young Haim of her clan answered very quietly and even somehow hesitantly. "Well then, don't expect mercy." And both of them jumped out of their seats. Quite fast punches were replaced by blocks by attacks. Niji, Konoha's recognized genius, had the obvious advantage of longer arms. The genin launched rapid strikes, only a third of which were blocked. Hinata only casually touched her brother a couple of times. At some point, the girl tried to strike her opponent in the chest, but was stopped by the tight grip of the brown-haired man. With one hand, Niji held the girl by the wrist, with the other he rolled up the sleeve of his younger sister's jacket, exposing his arm, which already showed brownish bruises in the places where the tenketsu had been knocked out. "You are weak, Hinata-sama. Give up." "No way, Nai-san." The girl stubbornly answers, gently pulling her hand out of her brother's grip. "I won't offer any more." The heir to the side branch of the Hyuga clan answered rather rudely. And blows rained down on Hinata with redoubled force. Now it was possible to block or evade with a couple of blows out of 8 to 10. One of the blows hit the right side of the chest. The brunette fell to her knees and coughed, spitting out blood. "Winner. W8. I can still fight." The girl, breathing heavily and hoarsely, barely got up and again activated the Byakugan, which had turned off unknown when. Her legs were shaking from tension, and her hands were trembling. But before Hinata had time to fully assume a vertical position, she received another blow to the chest, which sent her flying against the wall. Having slid down it, the girl dropped to her knees again. Her older brother immediately towered over her. He had already raised his hand for the finishing blow, but immediately, 3 jonin rushed from their places to prevent the death of the Harem of the Hyuga clan. Yuhi Kurenai, the mentor of Hinata's team, blocked the girl, and Might Guy, the mentor of Niji's team, and Hitaki Kakashi, who simply did not like meaningless deaths, grabbed the hands of the resisting genin. "The fight is over," Gecko announced to Hayate. "Hyuga Hinata lost. Stop the fight." The judge received a murderous look from the activated Byakugan, but did not move from his place. Finally, Niji stopped resisting and the grip on his arms loosened. Naruto immediately went down to the arena and, running up to Hinata, began to carry out diagnostics, after which she began to treat the girl's wounds as best she could. The blonde had encountered damage from Juken only a couple of times, but they were enough to roughly understand how to treat such injuries. The first step was to restore the broken bones and a couple of damaged organs, then the internal bleeding was hastily stopped. After that, then the Irionans arrived with a stretcher, and the treatment had to be stopped. The blonde rose to her place and stood up, looking at the scoreboard as if nothing had happened. Although the last opponents were obvious. Gaara and Rock Lee. In heavy silence, the 2 opponents descended into the arena. The judge gave the go-ahead, and at the same moment the genin in the green overalls took off. The brunette actively struck, moving at medium speed, but the Jinchuriki lazily defended himself with sand, not even moving from his place. At some point, the red-haired man's patience apparently snapped, and he began to strike with sand. Rock even had to jump back onto the top of the seal statue. Why doesn't he use ninjutsu? Sakura frowned, referring to the black-haired genin with the power of youth in one place. He just doesn't need technology. Might Guy responded, as the mentor and main source of the mentioned power. Lee has enough taijutsu. And already shouted loudly, flashing a wide white-toothed smile, "Come on, Lee. Shoot. Is it really possible?" "Exactly." And, listening to his mentor, the genin pulled out metal weights from under his yellow leggings. One of the mentors, obviously foreign, chuckled mockingly, "Training with weights? Well, he'll become a little faster, so what?" However, when the weights crashed to the floor, creating craters and raising clouds of dust, silence fell. Everyone fell silent, the genin, the jonin, and, it seems, even the mosquitoes and flies that were flying around the room in small numbers. At the same moment, Rock jumped from the statue and rushed towards the enemy. Now Naruto could barely distinguish the genin's basic movements, and that was thanks to Kurama's vision. Gaara could no longer fight back as lazily as he had at the beginning of the fight. He did not have time to repel the brunette's attacks at all. However, rather fast and strong blows did not cause much harm to the red-haired man. The battle promised to drag on, but... "Lee, I allow you to use this." "Okay, Sensei. A quick attack that throws Gaara high into the air, wraps him in bandages and delivers a huge number of quick, accurate strikes. Naruto somehow distantly remembered that it was this technique that the brunette wanted to use in sparring and beating Sasuke before the first stage. The blonde did not listen to Kakashi's lecture about gates in the human body. Now it was not so important. The Bijou chakra was clearly felt from the Jinchuriki Ichibi even during a fleeting meeting on the day of awakening. What will the red-haired guy do now? The girl peered intensely at the clouds of dust that rose after Gaara was driven into the floor. The examiner came up. Here he bent over the body of the Jinchuriki, covered with cracks. He began to announce the winner, when suddenly Gaara crumbled in the funnel, turning into sand. At the end of the arena hall stood the unharmed Suna Genin. The following events merged into a single red-green spot mixed with beige-brown stripes of sand. Clearly annoyed, the Jinchuriki makes a strange seal and pronounces the name of the technique, sand coffin. All the sand that the red-haired man had at his disposal rushed towards Rock Lee, tired and overstrained from using the forbidden technique. The boy tried to dodge, and was even able to dodge the sand for a while, but was grabbed by his left arm and leg. There was a deafening crunch, interrupted by a painful cry from the Konoha Genin. All. You win, leave my student. Might Guy landed on the arena. Rock Lee lost. Stop the fight. The winner is Gaara, says the examiner. However, the Jinchuriki did not intend to stop and was about to finish off the enemy. Throw water on him, or what? Kurama said thoughtfully. Shikaku is upset about something. It was difficult to disagree. And Naruto herself was not particularly eager to refute her friend's words. I didn't want to show off any techniques other than Iriajitsu until the third stage, but... While Naruto was thinking, Gaara was finally forced to return to the balcony to her sensei and team. Now everyone was waiting for the Irionin to come to pick up the injured genin. The blonde went down to the arena again to heal at least some wounds. After the diagnosis, the girl suddenly felt the hair on the back of her head move in horror, and a 13-year-old genin did this? The bones of the damaged limbs were not just broken, but turned into a small puzzle. All the blonde could do now was fix the fragments in the position they should be in and heal the torn muscles. We need an Irionin of at least S rank here. Otherwise, he has no chance of becoming a shinobi again. Naruto said quietly, so that only Guy, who was silently watching the blonde's manipulations, could hear. The damage is simply incredible. Although I have healed some of it, it will be quite difficult to heal the bones. Ideally, the fusion operation will be performed by Senju. The girl fell silent as the Irionin approached and, rather rudely, as the blonde thought, they loaded the crippled man onto a stretcher and quickly left. The third Hokage entered the center of the arena. The genin descended and stood in line in front of the ruler of Konoha. The jonins landed behind Sarutobi. The qualifying battles are over. You have all proven that you are worthy of becoming Chunin. The final stage will begin in a month. There were disturbances, after which Naruto no longer listened to the old man's speech. She was simply not interested. No, the general meaning, which boiled down to, train during this month, surprised the enemy with new techniques. The blonde caught and even managed to mentally criticize the Hokage's unconvincing speech. What idiot in his right mind would actually train new powerful techniques in a strange village? The girl woke up only at the moment when Mitarashi Enko walked past the line of genin with a box. Following the example of the others, Naruto pulled out a piece of paper and then called out her number, which was recorded in the table. The result is the following. 1. Uchiha Sasuke. 2. Gaara. 3. Uzumaki Naruto. 4. Hyuga Neji. 5. Aburame Shino. 6. Kankuro. 7. Nara Shikamaru. 8. Temari. 9. Ichinami Tsukiko. Then another speech followed, only now its topic was, "Thank you everyone, you are free." Then the children were driven to the exit. Naruto quickly caught up with Sasuke and spoke quietly. You know, I could help you with training until the third stage. The answer was only a surprised and mocking look from the brunette. Do not look at me so. You saw the battle with Orochimaru Sannin. Of course, you won't be able to master Jigaku Rokudo, if only because it took me 5 years to do it myself, but I can easily train you in ninjutsu and taijutsu. I agree. But only on the condition that you tell me why you changed so much. The corner of the blonde's lips rose barely noticeably for a moment. Not everyone knows how to accept someone's help, turning everything around as if they were doing a favor with their consent. More precisely, of all such skills, Naruto knew only Madara and Izuna. The blonde shook her head to get rid of sad thoughts. At the exit from the tower, the children were met by Kakashi. He made a smile and said, "Well done, Sasuke-kun, Naruto-chan, I didn't doubt you. Until the third stage you will have intensive training. I will train Sasuke-kun myself, and Naruto-chan will be trained by the elite teacher Ebisu-san. I don't need teachers." The blonde cut off coldly. She didn't like it at all that some modern ninja doubted her abilities. People like him, Izuna and Madara, and even herself, easily laid on the shoulder blades, if not killed. I already have a teacher. The brunette chuckled. Emma, and who is this? The answer was only another grunt. The genin were led out of the forest along a safe road, and it only took about half an hour. Sakura did not have time to invite Sasuke to celebrate his admission to the third stage, as Naruto took her teammate in the direction of her home. To break up the silence, the brunette asked the first thing that came to his mind. Where were you moved after the destruction of the hostel? Where were you moved after the destruction of the hostel? To an old house on the outskirts. Naruto shrugged. A good attitude towards orphans. Sasuke chuckled sarcastically. The blonde shrugged again. I asked myself to be accommodated there. And what attracted you to the most terrible house in Konoha? The brunette tried to hide the emerging fear behind sarcasm. He is now going to where, according to rumors, ghosts live and paranormal things happen. Even the trees there never changed their leaves. Naruto chuckled mockingly. An experienced shinobi like her could not hide the fear of some genin, even if he had good control of his emotions and body. There lived the widow of Uchiha Madara's younger brother. I expected to find something there. The girl answered evasively. The widow of Madara's younger brother? Uchiha Uzumaki Naruto, if I remember correctly? Sasuke immediately became interested. Have you heard of her? In our clan we almost idolized her. Even Kasan once said that as a child she dreamed of becoming like her. Yes? What did they say about her? The natural curiosity characteristic of all Uzumaki took over, but at the last moment the blonde pulled herself together, and the question sounded calm. A lot. Basically, stories about how strong, kind and generally an ideal wife, ninja and woman she is. Well, ideal people don't exist, so it's unlikely. But this is a separate topic for various other legends. Many believe that she was sent by Kami-sama himself so that she could contain Madara's fervor and madness. Some said she was an angel, some said she was an exorcised demon who fell in love with a human. Why are you even interested in this? Interesting. Naruto shrugged. We came. Wait a second. The girl bit her finger, made the necessary seals, waited a couple of seconds, and then led Sasuke by the hand into the territory of her house. Having created several shadow clones and sent them to the garden, the blonde opened the door and let the guest into the house. She made another clone and sent him to the kitchen, and took the brunette to the living room. Take a seat. The girl said in a calm tone. Sasuke obediently sat down on the offered chair. The blonde sank into the chair opposite. First of all, I must tell you about the training plan. Tomorrow morning I will check your level and change the initial plan to suit you. The first stage is strengthening the spirit. First, meditation, then, concentration exercises. The second stage is strengthening the body. First, endurance, then, physical strength. The third stage is taijutsu. First, repeating and honing known techniques, then learning new ones. The fourth stage is ninjutsu. I will help you learn how to correctly use the techniques of the Uchiha clan. Perhaps you will have time to learn one or two techniques from Katan. Questions? Aren't your plans for the month too big? The brunette chuckled. I'm not going to raise your level much. Naruto shrugged. At this time, a clone from the kitchen entered the room and, putting cups of tea on the table, disappeared. I'll just push you up a little bit in each discipline. However, tomorrow I'll look at your level and decide where and how to focus. More questions? Why such drastic changes? You'll find out tomorrow. After checking. More? Why did you decide to train me? Naruto silently stood up from her seat and walked over to the nightstand next to the couch. Taking the frame with the photo from her, the blonde returned to the chair and handed the taken item to Sasuke. When the genin took the frame in his hands, the girl tapped her fingernail on the place where Izuna's face was depicted. This is Uchiha Izuna, the husband of the previous owner of this house. You look like him. But externally. Only externally. Are you going to ask anything else? No. Well, then, the girl stood up from her seat, put the photo in place and, out of habit, tried to hide her hands in the sleeves, but the length did not allow her. Come on, I'll show you the room where you'll be living for the next month. Can't you ask me? I may not have intended to move in with you. There's a lot to do, training starts at 6 in the morning, and you'll have to get up even earlier. Yes, and I'm used to getting up quite early. If you want to wake up even earlier, you can go back to the Uchiha quarter. Sasuke thought about it. He thought for a couple of seconds, and when he wanted to give an answer, Naruto unexpectedly brought up a new argument. Besides, the house is protected by barriers, and no one can get in here just like that. Fine. I stay. The corner of the blonde's lips twitched, indicating a smile. Then I need a drop of your blood. Without waiting for Sasuke's reaction, the mistress of the house scratched his hand with a Tessen blade and ran her fingers over the wound, collecting blood. The girl healed the wound with her other hand. The hand with the blood glowed with a soft green light, keeping the liquid fresh. Go to the clan quarter and pack your things for a month. I hope for your prudence. Silently nodding, the brunette left the house, heading towards his quarter, and Naruto went to the basement to set up barriers. The genin immediately admitted to himself that living in a separate house, even with his teammate, was better than living alone in a whole block. Besides, Naruto reacts to him quite calmly and she promised training. But for the sake of decency it was necessary to be indignant. The boy collected his things, almost without looking, only to quickly leave the house that smelled of blood and death. Yes, Sasuke was afraid to stay here for a long time. Therefore, every day I went to the pharmacy and bought sleeping pills. To fall asleep without suffering, sleep without dreams and wake up without suffering as much as you fell asleep, just to see less of these walls. So it's not hard to guess that there was no housekeeping in the house at all. Everything here was covered with dust, except for the bathroom and toilet. The brunette was still using them. When the boy climbed the stairs, it creaked disgustingly, causing the young owner of the main mansion of the block to tremble violently. Just in case, looking back, Sasuke quickly finished his journey to the second floor, to his room. It, like the rest of the house, even the kitchen, was very dusty. The genin didn't even cough, he was used to it. Taking the first backpack that came to hand, the brunette shoveled almost all his few clothes into it, including underwear. Not very carefully, since fussing with folding would prolong the stay in the mansion of the head of the Uchiha clan. Somewhere on the edge of consciousness, the thought appeared, but almost immediately disappeared, that if suddenly Uzumaki, no, Naruto, decided to help settle into the promised room, it would be bad. Having fastened his backpack and slammed the closet drawer, Sasuke flew out of the mansion like a bullet, hastily closed the door and, without even checking it, quickly left the block. The boy didn't even briefly remember the barriers when he returned to Naruto's house. The mistress of the house, who had already changed into her homemade yukata, came down to meet him, sensing his chakra. She would have left earlier, but the barriers blocked most external factors, and the signal circuit no longer responded. The blonde managed to set it up. If I hadn't managed to set up the barriers, then all that would be left of you would be a pile of ashes. She informed the guest, to which he only chuckled. Take off your shoes and follow me. I'll show you your room. After waiting for Sasuke to take off his sandals and approach her, the girl turned around and went back up to the second floor. Then she led the guest down the corridor. Sasuke, completely forgetting about clan pride, turned his head, looking at the photographs that had been hung up during his absence. Here is a black-haired man, clearly an Uchiha, eerily similar to Sasuke, holding a blushing and indignant blonde with two long ponytails in his arms. The photo was clearly taken spontaneously, someone just snatched a moment from life. But this same man, dressed in a festive gray-blue kimono with a small Uchiha mon on his chest, is holding a cheerfully smiling woman by the waist in a light yellow, almost white, elegant kimono with a black obi belt and a gold obi dome. The man and woman, already familiar from previous photographs, here quite young, are located at the edges of the horizontal photo. The girl is indignant about something, her eyebrows are furrowed, her lips are pouting, and, apparently, she folded her hands on her chest. Sasuke didn't know for sure, the photo only captured the faces and shoulders of the trio. The guy on the edge was already familiar to the brunette and was also indignant about something, only in a more restrained manner. He just frowned and looked disapprovingly at the guy in the center. The latter was the only one in the frame who smiled. He hugged the guy and the girl by the shoulders. There were many more different or similar photographs, but Sasuke did not remember them. He thought hard, trying to understand why the girl or woman in the photographs looked so much like Naruto. Are they somehow connected? We came. Here's your room. Mine is opposite. Make yourself comfortable. In about 20 minutes you can come down, dinner will be ready. Don't go into the room to the left of your door, don't go up to the attic, don't go down to the basement. And, turning around, she silently went into her room. The next morning began unexpectedly and quite early for Sasuke. At 5 in the morning he was doused with ice water. Good morning. Naruto, who was already dressed, greeted him completely emotionlessly. This time she chose a cream-colored plain kimono. Get yourself in order and go out to the backyard, let's start the test. And, turning around, she left. Sasuke noted that on the back was a stylized image of a curled-up fox. I had to get up and get dressed. After hanging the bed linen over the bathroom and trying to comb his hair, the brunette went down to the first floor, after which he went out into the backyard, as Naruto had asked. The girl was found sitting under one of the peach trees, eating the unripe fruit of the said tree. As soon as the genin approached, some piece of paper with kanji was shoved into his hands. Pour chakra into it. The brunette obediently began to pour chakra into the leaf. The kanji began to change quickly. Naruto began to write something down in a notebook. It was unclear where it came from. When there was no chakra left at all, the kanji froze. 16 and blue. And what does it mean? The amount of your chakra and its aggressiveness. How much chakra do you have? The brunette asked as indifferently as possible. Don't know. But we'll find out together. The blonde pulled out another exactly the same piece of paper from the box lying on the ground. The hieroglyphs changed even faster. When the frantic flashing stopped, the piece of paper read 93 and blue. However, the aggressiveness of the chakra is only needed to select the next verification seal and is of no use to us now," said the girl, tactfully keeping silent about the fact that earlier the figure was 240. She will be upset about this later. The main thing now is Sasuke's training. As I already said, the first part is meditation. You can sit somewhere on the training ground or in the garden. I hope you know how to meditate. The brunette nodded. Wonderful. So, choose a place and start. I'll tell you when you can finish. The genin obediently sat down to meditate right under the peach tree. Naruto immediately went into the house to adjust the program. In fact, with a month-long training period, meditation was completely useless, so they can be omitted right away. Concentration classes alone will take almost 6 months, which means they can also be eliminated. Or better yet, replace it with chakra control training. Body strengthening classes will have to be very compressed. They are usually carried out in parallel with meditation, and they take more than 6 months. And this is just the basis when you need to greatly improve your physical fitness. And so, maybe you can increase your speed and endurance a little. Taijutsu, well, only if you correct the use of some techniques and show a couple of new ones. Ninjutsu. What to teach an Uchiha with such a reserve of chakra? Hellish flashes. Madara liked this technique, almost like Amaterasu, only it is still possible to extinguish it, and the ignition of the object occurs from the inside. No, Sasuke won't be able to master it in a month. Chakra control must be perfect, and you need to know Iriajitsu at least superficially. Or the royal fire dragon. It doesn't melt like sand and stones, even Mokuton can't withstand it. Although, where will Sasuke get so much chakra from? Fire impulse? And what is great destructiveness, is not intended for killing. This is very important, since if Sasuke kills his opponent, Suna will bring very serious charges. You only need 1.5 times more chakra than the brunette has, with not very good control. Nodding with satisfaction at the chosen training option, Naruto began to think about the brunette himself. After the destruction of the clan, Sasuke clearly spent very little time training, which was depressing. The indicators would be very small. But, is it possible to increase the effectiveness of training? Yes, exactly. Apply CI to him only slightly, almost imperceptibly, and gradually increase the power of influence as he gets used to it. You can put seals on your body that make it difficult to use and control chakra, then, when they are removed, your performance will increase noticeably. You can also use Fuin weights. Speed and strength, given the first enemy in the 3rd stage, will come in handy. And in the mornings and evenings he will read scrolls and diary entries about the Sharingan, if he still has the strength, of course. Well, you should start adding poisons to his food so that he learns to resist. Kurama grumbled. Naruto just chuckled mentally. That, of course, would be great, but in a month it's simply impossible to develop immunity to even one poison, let alone all of them. And the girl was not going to make Sasuke a professional shinobi without weaknesses. At least not yet. Closer to lunch, the blonde created a clone and sent it to the kitchen, while she went to Sasuke. He honestly meditated under the tree. You can get up. Now we will have lunch and begin the next stage of training. The couple was already moving towards the house. Next stage? And what will one meditation do for me? The brunette asked, not hiding his skepticism. During your meditation, I changed the program a little, adjusted it to you and the given time frame. There will be no meditation or concentration training. We'll go to the baths to train your chakra control. What are we going to do there? The boy snorted. You will learn to walk on water with the help of chakra. Naruto opened the door and let the brunette into the room. This is one of the stages of improving chakra control. Previously, this was one of the initial stages, now it is the last. The girl explained, watching the clone calmly lay out cutlery and plates of food. The meal passed in silence. The blonde simply didn't talk without a particular reason, and Sasuke simply didn't know what to talk about with the mistress of the house. Another clone stayed behind to wash dishes and clean the kitchen. Walking slightly behind the girl, the brunette noted that she behaved quite confidently and even proudly, like a true aristocrat. Unlike Naruto, before the coma, she did not jump down the street, kept her back straight and walked beautifully. And it seemed so natural, correct, as if the blonde did not focus on her posture and gait, but did it instinctively, unconsciously. For some reason, the men's baths were empty today. Naruto calmly and quite quietly, forcing her to listen to her every word, explained the theory, showed it in practice and gave some advice, after which she sent her off to practice. After only 15 minutes, Sasuke was soaked to the skin and was ready to burn everything with his gaze. He constantly fell underwater. Realizing that her would-be student would not master the complex art of walking on water anytime soon, Naruto offered to undress so that the clothes could dry. The answer to this proposal was a suspicious look and continued work. By the way, Uzumaki, the genin began when, tired, he sat down to rest for a while. Naruto. The brunette threw a puzzled look at the girl. Call me by my first name, I don't like being called by my last name. Fine. Naruto, why did you only check the amount of chakra? Because that's enough for me. The blonde shrugged. Chakra is a mixture of body and spirit energy, you remember this from the academy course. So, having learned the amount of chakra in your body, I can roughly imagine the state of your body and soul. That's all. Now you should continue your training. Sasuke obediently resumed his attempts to walk on the water. But not even half an hour had passed when a huge frog landed right next to the pool, with a man standing on its head. Naruto barely had time to jump away. Having looked at the blonde who had taken a fighting stance and the confused Sasuke, the as yet unknown person scratched the top of his head, showed bewilderment on his face, muttered something and finally turned to the children. Where is Ebisu? He's not here. May I ask who you are and why do you need Ebisu-san? I am the favorite of women, Toad Sannin Jiraiya. The training violator said in a pretentious voice. Kurama confirmed his words about the Sannin and muttered something about a sick voyeur. And I need Ebisu too, well, I have to train Uzumaki Naruto. And why do you need to train her? There was a barely noticeable mockery in the blonde's voice. Well, the Sannin said much less confidently. I am Naruto's godfather. The man smiled widely. And where was this godfather for the previous 13 years? Sasuke snorted, to whom no one had previously paid attention, and who, like everyone else, was well aware that Uzumaki Naruto was an orphan. Sannin was embarrassed. Jiraiya-sen. You are interfering with your workout. Naruto said completely calmly. About. Exactly. Maybe you saw her? She's just very similar to you, she should be. I saw it. This morning in the mirror. And now, when you have found out everything that interested you, please leave, you are stopping me from training Sasuke. But you are the same age. Jiraiya was indignant. So, training won't hurt you either. She defeated the snake Sannin. If she needs training, it is only to keep in shape. Sasuke chuckled. The Toad Sannin's eyes took on a perfectly round shape. I do not believe. A 13-year-old girl couldn't defeat Orochimaru. Of course, he is a little bit of that, but... How do you know, Jiraiya-san? Naruto interrupted him coldly. She was annoyed by this man who decided that he knew her better than she did. I don't remember a single meeting of ours. You may be a very good and strong ninja, but for me you are nothing. I do not know you. The only people who cared about me are long dead. That's why I believe my family is dead. You insult their memory with your statements. Jiraiya turned completely sour, lowered his head and sighed, apparently having decided something for himself. Naruto and Sasuke waited patiently for the Sanin's reaction. Finally, he looked Naruto in the eyes again and said, "The reasons for my absence. I can only talk about them in a place where no one is sure to overhear." The man said completely seriously. "But in exchange, I want to hear your life story. And I also want to hear about these people dear to you. You should wait until evening. Now I am training Sasuke, and only then I will tell a small part of the truth." Satisfied with the answer, Jiraiya called the toad away and sat cross-legged right in front of the pool, although 20 minutes later he left towards the women's baths. The aforementioned Sasuke, a little upset, just a little, in the very depths of his soul, that some old man would get the truth about his teammate for nothing, returned to training in walking on water. Naruto chuckled, somehow too quickly, and simply this toad Sannin Jiraiya joined her circle of trust and got the opportunity to find out the truth. We need to come to our senses quickly. And try to feed the Sannin some simple story. And the dear people will be the fictitious side family of the Uchihas. Yeah, that's how it will be. Underscore 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 underscore. Obi dome, decoration on the obi belt, which fastens a special cord on the belt, obi jime. In the evening, on the way home, Naruto looked either at the wet but satisfied Sasuke, who had learned to walk on water, or at the slightly, outwardly, nervous Jiraiya. She didn't understand why these two in particular. Although, however, the girl never complained about her intuition, which means she shouldn't even now. Having led her godfather by the hand into the territory of the house, the blonde sent the clone to the kitchen, and she began to frantically come up with reasons to tell her story to everyone separately. Sasuke didn't want to lie at all. The boy has the right to know the truth, as the heir of the Uchiha clan, similar to the late Izuna, and simply so as not to become arrogant and listen. But Jiraiya, where was this godfather when Naruto lost consciousness during another beating as a birthday present? When did you have to choke on custard ramen instead of at least an apple? When at the academy you couldn't even get the simplest techniques? Oh, and of course, the toad Sannin needs to somehow be stamped against telling his creator's secrets. Although it would be better if the man himself agreed. Naruto, are you still going to remain silent? Sasuke asked in a disdainful tone, tearing the girl out of her stream of thoughts. No, the blonde responded with a sigh. Jiraiya-san, I would like to tell my story to each of you separately. In response to two questioning glances, she explained, just for Sasuke, I will omit some details. HN. If you think that after the events of 5 years ago you can impress me with something like that, then you are very mistaken. The brunette stated, grinning smugly. Naruto just shook her head. With something like that, she may well impress even experienced shinobi. Fine. Then. I would like to receive some information from you, Jiraiya-san, in exchange for telling me about myself. Why? What information do you want? The Sannin frowned. Just answer, yes or no, if you hope to evade and just listen to me and then leave, the barriers will not let you out. Otherwise, you can leave for now if you are not going to tell me what interests me. There are things I can't tell. At least for reasons of your own safety. Don't worry, Jiraiya-san, no one except those here will know about our conversation. And I can take care of my safety myself. Okay. I agree. The man reluctantly responded, clearly still fooling around. Well, then I guess I'll start. You both can ask all the questions after my story. I will not retell the story of my life before I was 13, I promise to tell Sasuke something else. It all started a week before the first stage of Chunin Shuriken. Then I was able to steal the scroll from the Konoha vault. I don't remember exactly why I did it, but, one way or another, the girl made a significant pause. I used the technique from there. And the next moment I found myself in a clearing not far from here, then there was still a forest here. Naruto told everything without hiding, about the first acquaintance with Madara and Hashirama, and about friendship with them, and about the first quarrel between the two heirs, seen by the blonde, and about the subsequent disappearance from the life of the girl of the then future first Hokage, and about training with the eldest of the Uchiha brothers, and about meeting Uchiha Izuna. After the beginning of this part of the story, Naruto literally blossomed, so that both listeners caught the trick, and about the beginning of an affair with him, and about the subsequent wedding, and about the death of her husband, and about the fall after that, into a terrible depression, and about the conclusion of peace between the Senju and Uchiha clans, and about the attempts of the named brother to stir up the young widow, and about the founding of Konoha, and about the death of Madara. A long 2-hour excursion into history ended with the phrase, "And a week later I committed suicide." Wait a minute. Do you think we will believe all this so easily? Jiraiya asked after almost 3 minutes of silence. In fact, if you knew Naruto for at least a month, you would notice that she has changed extremely much. Sasuke chuckled. Something told the genin that everything he said was true. In addition, he did not like at all that the man who called himself a relative of the orphan appeared only 13 years later, when he was no longer needed. And the general situation in the house does not contradict her story. Yes? For example? Toad Sannin asked unusually seriously. HN. Well, at least the chakra has changed dramatically. Behavior. Yes, at least the same photographs that are all over the house. The brunette began to get angry. Sasuke. The blonde called in a strange, soft tone. Not worth it. Naruto shook her head. She, of course, was pleased by the sudden concern that had awakened in her partner, but now it was completely out of place. It's just, do you really think, Jiraiya-san, that a barrier system based on the creator's blood would let just anyone through? It doesn't matter, though. If you don't want to believe, don't believe. Now, Sasuke, please leave us alone. You better go to bed, I'll wake you up tomorrow too. The brunette stood up and silently left the room. Naruto closed her eyes, feeling the source of Sasuke's chakra moving away. Now, I would like to get answers to my questions. Wait a minute. You didn't even talk about your childhood. What is there to tell? She lived in a shelter. Then I entered the academy. She was the worst in the class. Somehow she became a genin and was assigned to the 7th team. Sensei didn't deal with us, he only taught us the second stage of chakra control. Throughout the entire period, she was malnourished and suffered beatings and abuse. Nothing interesting or noteworthy. So will you keep your promise and answer my questions? Ask. Jiraiya nodded sourly. How to open the cage with the Kyuubi? The Sannin choked on air. He expected to hear questions like, what were the names of my parents, or why did you just come now? Yes, anything, but not this. Why do you need it? I want to open the cage. Naruto answered in such a tone, as if this was something so obvious that the question sounded, at the very least, stupid. For what? The man immediately blew himself up. I want to repay Lisa. Unlike you, he took care of me. And he continues to do so. Don't trust the Kyuubi, he will deceive you and take over your body. Toad Sannin passionately demanded, jumping up from his seat. Kurama is unpleasant about your accusations. The girl said confidentially. And he also says that without a key you can't lock the cage if it's still open. So your absence from the village could be regarded as an attempt to destroy the village. I, Jiraiya, taken aback by such a statement, could only open and close his mouth. Sit down please. A clone entered the living room with another portion of tea. We have a serious conversation ahead of us. The man looked at his goddaughter with suspicion. The blonde sat calmly in a chair and sipped the tea she brought. But, despite the relaxed posture and general calm appearance, Naruto was irritated. This could easily be understood from the barely noticeable, for Jiraiya, at least, wave of Ki. What kind of conversation? The Sannin finally returned back to his chair. The girl sighed, calming down and putting away the ci, closed her eyes and, putting a cup on the table in front of her, began. I understand that it's strange for you. No, it's probably even wild to hear that Kyubi no Yoko is not a mindless monster, but a completely sensible creature, capable of constructive dialogue. Although Uchiha Madara, according to rumors and history books, is a tyrant, a psychopath and a monster. You haven't met either one or the other. But you did not challenge my opinion about Madara. Most likely because he is human. However, Kurama, whom everyone is accustomed to calling Kyubi, contrary to the opinions of others, is not just a clot of chakra with a thirst for death and destruction, but, as I already said, the look of the mistress of the house remained empty throughout the monologue, as if her thoughts were now very far away. I understood you. Jiraiya sighed. But I won't give you the key yet. I will do this a little later, before the third stage of Chunin Shuriken. The answer was a short nod. What else? You didn't decide to start a conversation just because of the key to the seal, did you? Well, I simply needed to speak out. Naruto shrugged and turned her gaze somewhere to the side. And, fools are not given the title of Great Sannin. And sometimes you want to communicate with someone who is at least a little different in the number of brains from an amoeba. I see. The man's lips spread into a grin at some of his thoughts. But after a couple of seconds, the piercing gaze of an experienced shinobi stared at Naruto. You're evasive. Why? No, calmly holding the interlocutor's gaze, the Jinchuriki responded. So you're trying to hide something. The girl, squinting, looked into the eyes of her godfather. And then, exhaling sharply, she said. You're right, Jiraiya-san. It worries me that both founding clans have been destroyed. Jiraiya tensed at these words, but Naruto, as if not noticing this, began to develop the thought. At first glance, everything is quite justified and logical. The Senju literally plugged all the holes at the front during the Third World War. All of them, except for Tsunadeheim, died during this war. There is not even anywhere to dig into this version. Uchiha, from the very beginning, all Hokages, except the fourth, expressed their negative attitude towards the clan. Jiraiya already opened his mouth to apparently mention Hashirama Senju, but was stopped by a gesture. I know what I'm talking about, Jiraiya-san. The election of the first Hokage, the politics of the second and finally the rumors after Kurama's attack. Completely, by the way, stupid and unfounded. All this led to discontent and, as a consequence, an attempt at rebellion on the part of the clan. Can I ask a couple of questions then? They nodded in response. How do you know so much? I mean, I understood you. Well, I took a small part of the information from a history course at the academy. Another part became known to me due to the fact that I was personally present at certain events. And last night I was able to visit the data warehouse. There is a dossier for each clan, with whom he is and is not friends, which Hokage and elders treated him, how the clan's reputation in general, and so on. Of course, there was no data on the real state of affairs, which is unfortunate, but this was enough to draw conclusions. You wouldn't just tell me all this, am I right? The answer was a satisfied grunt. So you expect something from me? Well, the girl said thoughtfully. The support of one of the Sannin Trinity would be simply invaluable, and, in general, to discuss the situation, find out more details about the necessary events. What Naruto said next, Jiraiya did not hear. Consciousness floated somewhere far away, and my eyes closed. Seeing this, the blonde was not at all surprised, but only got up from her seat and approached the man. The girl removed the protector from the guest's forehead and, biting her finger, began to draw symbols of a special seal in blood. The mistress of the house did not want any secret to go beyond the protective barriers. As soon as the installation of the bookmark was completed, Naruto, deciding to play it safe just in case, opened her would-be godfather's subconscious and checked for the presence of other mental bookmarks. What he saw made his eyebrows go up. What was not in the head of the Toad Sannin? No, there was nothing terrible or irreparable there, but there was a huge pile of bookmarks. One, for loyalty to Konoha, another, for loyalty to Hiruzen personally, some strange crooked one made for falling in love with Senju Tsunade, a bookmark for irresponsibility, a couple of bookmarks for obedience and even one for tomfoolery in certain situations. Shaking her head and, just in case, remembering the chakra imprints from each bookmark, some were almost like those of the dead, clearly the root had tried, Naruto began to remove them. Most were old and had already left their mark on the Sannin's personality. Kurama grumbled with displeasure. He did not like the entire trinity of great alcoholics, as the fox himself put it. But you can't argue against a friend and your own Jinchuriki, and why would that be? She is quite an adult, she is capable of answering for her actions. Besides, if this talker somewhere says something about Naruto, then problems may begin. Naruto ran at full speed towards the chakra sources. One of them, the one that belonged to Izuna, felt just barely, as if it was ready to go out at any second. The blonde, being an Irishman and a good censor, knew very well that this is how dying people feel. But the woman did not want to believe. She still hoped that she could make it in time, run, and help. But then the forest ended abruptly, revealing to Naruto's gaze a small clearing where the two people dearest to her were located. Madara was found sitting behind a small dais. In his arms lay a smiling Izuna, whose older brother was clutching his bleeding eyes. The younger muttered something, while Madara looked somewhere in the sky, seemingly not even noticing the arrival of his daughter-in-law. The blonde immediately rushed towards them, turning her chakra into healing chakra as she went. Naruto? It's you? Izuna asked in a slightly perplexed and weak voice. Don't turn around. Now we'll treat you and, the woman smiled faintly, starting to scan her beloved's body. But it ended abruptly. Several broken ribs fell inside and already damaged the lungs, almost reaching the heart. After a moment of panic, Naruto instantly pulled herself together and began to restore first the broken bones, then the damaged organs. But the heart, which still managed to get damaged, did not want to recover. It beat less and less. While Naruto was frantically healing other injuries and looking for a way to make her heart beat, Izuna spoke again. Naru, take my eyes when I die, okay? You won't die, stupid. The blonde almost screamed in tears, shaking her long hair. Now I will seal you, and then. She was interrupted by a hoarse and quiet laugh, which quickly gave way to a cough. Then the cough stopped. Uchiha Izuna died. Naruto sat up abruptly on the bed. She dreamed about that day again. The day she became a widow. When the entire Uchiha clan lost one of its leaders. The girl looked at the clock that stood on the bedside table. 4 o'clock in the morning. It took an hour to wake up Sasuke, and the sleeping pills had probably stopped working on the Sannin, who remained in the living room. Taking a deep breath, the blonde took a sitting position and climbed off the bed. Morning exercise didn't take long. Naruto was used to getting ready quickly. A simple plain kimono, like yesterday, was put on almost automatically. Having gone downstairs, the girl went into the living room. There, Jiraiya was already sleepily rubbing his eyes. And why did you do this? The man asked without greeting. Our dialogue became unpleasant to me. How did you put me to sleep? There were special fuins on the cups. Taking the cup in your hands, you imprinted a chakra design on your palm. As soon as the dialogue became unpleasant for me, I activated the seals. That's how you communicate with fuinjutsu masters. Jiraiya muttered. Both were silent for almost a minute until Naruto spoke. You still haven't talked about the reasons for your absence from the village. Yes, after the death of the fourth. I got drunk. And then the councils of the elders and jonins were gathering, and they plowed me. I had a hard time getting through the doorway, let alone thinking soberly. And they told me, go, Jiraiya, on a multi-year surveillance mission. That's how it is. The third personally handed this mission to me. I could never object to him even when sober. Honestly, I don't know why I was so devoted to him like a puppy. But I know. Yesterday I removed a huge number of mental bookmarks from your mind. And what were you doing in my mind? Toad Sannin asked in a sly voice. I set a bookmark that prohibited chatting about the secrets of my house without my permission. Naruto answered completely calmly. So, it turns out that the third and the elders are manipulators who do not disdain lies and mental bookmarks. Jiraiya returned the topic of conversation. The blonde nodded in response. It is likely that Orochimaru Sannin was disposed of in the same way as the founding clans. The hostess of the house expressed her assumption. Only here, most likely, Shimura Danzo worked. The mistress of the house's mood slowly returned. I no longer wanted to reopen my veins or throat. A small fire of excitement and anticipation lit up inside the girl. Now the Toad Sannin is not so loyal to Konoha and the Hokage, and feels, at a minimum, disgust for the elders and Danzo. This means that it will still be possible to carry out the idea. Sasuke's morning began the same way as the previous one, with a bucket of ice water. True, this time several small objects, even colder than water, fell on my head. The brunette jumped on the spot from the cold. Good morning. Get dressed and come down for breakfast. Naruto had already turned around to leave when she was slowed down by the temporary resident of the room himself. Hey! Wait! How did you pour water on me? The answer was a raised eyebrow from the hostess of the house who turned around. Well, you didn't take a bucket or anything with you. I just mixed futon and sueton. The result was ice jets. When I perfect the technique, it will be Hyaton. And she left silently. The last Uchiha obediently cleaned himself up and went down for breakfast. The meal passed with some impatience. After all, he really wanted to learn something that was at least vaguely reminiscent of the techniques that Naruto used in the battle with the snake Sannin. But Sasuke did not yet know that Naruto was as merciless during training as she was calm the rest of the time. This is where the story ends.